If I say Susie Q, Grizzly Bear, and Madison, I'll probably get some confused stares. If I say Waltz, the Charleston, and Gangnam Style, the picture gets clearer. And if I say the robot, a lot of folks will know I'm talking about a 1970s era dance that's seeing a sort of resurgence.
Dancing robots.
Do you love me?
With enough rhythm. To make someone tweet, great, now even robots have better moves than me.
Tell me. Do you love me?
That Spot, the Boston Dynamics Robo-Dog you can buy for $74,500. Look at that footwork. Noted one Twitter user, that dog robot has come a long way. The dance video released by Boston Dynamics to celebrate a happier new year inspired humans to imitate the robots. It's cool and creepy at the same time. We're doomed. Even Elon Musk was impressed. This is not CGI. Instead of its usual work lifting boxes, Handler the robot worked the dance floor. After years of being shoved by researchers, being dragged by the tail to test its doggedness, even kicked. The robots got their kicks for a change. Do robots do the human as well as humans do the robot? Jeannie Mo, CNN, New York.
So do the robots call it the human? Can they do the running robot? They should probably avoid the car wash and stick to a safety dance like the electric slide, because if they ever get popping locked up and grind their gears when they're not synchronized, they could break dance and require a hammer to get back to their algorithm march. Is today's shout out school? If you've ever owned one of these, you've probably dropped one of these. And the first question usually asked afterward is, does it still work? But we doubt that's what a Brazilian filmmaker asked when one of them slipped out of his hand while he was flying about 2,000 feet above a beach. The amazing thing is, not only did it still work, here's CNN's Jeannie Mose.
The next time you drop your cell phone, think of this guy. Talk about a dropped call. But Brazilian documentary maker Ernesto Galeotto wanted to use his phone, not lose it, as he shot the beaches of Rio de Janeiro. But when he took one hand off, the phone took off. Ernesto got a little annoyed. Here's how it looked from the phone's point of view. A blurry, spinning 19 seconds later, the iPhone 6 landed. Amid the beach grass, the next day, Ernesto used the Find My Phone app and actually found it.
Valeu!
You'd say thank you too if your phone fell out of a plane and still worked with only minor damage to the screen protector and case. Jealous Twitter users complained, I could just look at my screen and it cracks.
Well, that's a new definition for a dropped call. But going to look for it was easily the right call, because while most smartphones can only make calls, record video, check traffic, and look stuff up, that one can fly, y'all, and it sets a new bar for smartphone durability. I'm Carl Azuz. Some of you are watching. It's not every day that the block you use to get up on a horse is actually an ancient marble slab dating back to the 2nd century AD. No one knows how a Roman relic found its way to a garden in southern England, though archaeologists say wealthy British travelers did bring artifacts like this home in the 17 and 1800s. The woman who used it as a horse mounting block for the last 10 years had no idea it was historic. An auction house estimates that the relic could fetch as much as $20,000. And that's not horse feathers, horse withers, or us just horsing around. Now, some might hear that price and say, nay, but when a block hits the block after roaming across Europe, treasure hunters are sure to saddle up and plunk down some serious denarius. And that's an artifact, Jack. West St. Mary High School. When 91-year-old Dean Conklin was told that a sledding park was going to be named after him, he had just one thing to say.
What?
Conklin is a business owner, town councilman, and former teacher in a small town of Minnesota. He once gave this plot of land to a student, and people in the town loved Conklin so much that they dedicated the park to him and named it Conklin's Hill. He recently joined more than 100 others in testing out the new slope. And it's easy to ski. He's got slope style. There's no question about it. Now, some people might have buildings or monuments or streets named after him, but your own hill is a mountainous accomplishment that may be worth alpining away for, because only a loser would let that slide. We've got Harupa Hill. Animals on the job. The U.S. government defines a service dog as an animal that's individually trained to do work or perform tasks for a person with a disability. The process of raising and training one of these dogs is complex and costs roughly $25,000. But thanks to some generous volunteers in Northern California, part of some service dogs' transportation comes free.
There's a lot of stuff unsettled even today with COVID and everything else going on in the world. And so it's really nice to be able to use our aircraft to make lives better for people. My name is Josh Hochberg, and I live in Sonoma County, California, in Santa Rosa, and I own a company called Sonoma Jet Center. Canine Companions for Independence is an awesome local organization. Actually, it's a national organization headquartered in Santa Rosa, California. The Canine Companions raises highly trained service puppies that can do, or service dogs that can help people lead independent lives. Back when COVID started, they no longer could use the airlines, and so they started relying on private aircraft to take the dogs where they needed to go. And so some friends of mine and I volunteered. All the travel, all the flights, all the fuel is all donated by us, and volunteered to transport the dogs all around the country.
A private pilot flew 14 puppies from California all the way to Colorado just for us. Well, I'm Rachel, and I went to Texas Tech University, and that's where I found out about Canine Companions for Independence. And I've been on the wait list for about 8 months for this little puppy, Blossom. I'll have her for about 14 to 16 months, and we'll just train her and give her basic obedience and house manners and socialization. And then she goes to professional training for 6 months, and then hopefully she'll be placed as a service dog.
They've all toileted? They get trained to do all sorts of specialized tasks. Say somebody has trouble opening doors. The dogs can be trained to open the doors for the people. So what the dogs really do is they help people to lead independent lives.
Now that's a report that's got tongues and tails wagging. Taking flight turns beagles into eagles, Airedales into airmail. It gives new facets to Bassets, transportation to Transylvanians. It basically brings a whole Newfoundland of possibilities, turning every terrier into a Skye Terrier and every breed into a working one. That's about all the puns I could work up for today's show. At youtube.com/CNN. 202 meters is 662.73 feet. You're welcome. The reason we bring that up is because this guy swam it. You might be like, so what? That's like 4 laps in an Olympic pool. But hold your breath, y'all, because he did it without one. Stig Severinsen recently earned the Guinness World Distance record for swimming with fins on just one breath. He's been known to not breathe for more than 20 minutes at a time, so this was all part of an effort that would leave anyone else breathless. It took a long time. It must take an entirely new breed of athlete to hold out long enough to leave others gasping for air for what must seem like an oxygeneration. I'd rather hold my breath, even if I'm just full of hot air. I'm Carl Azuz for CNN 10. We're going to make a stop in Galac. Well, if you've ever thought, man, I know we have a machine to wash dishes, but I really wish there were a robot that could load them, the electronics company Samsung may have your solution. It was unveiled at this year's Consumer Electronics Show. It's called the Bot Handy, and not only can it load the dishwasher, it can load your laundry too. This robot arm is still being developed, and we don't know how much it'll cost. But if you've always thought it was a chore to lift clothes and dishes, well, think of the freedom. If getting dishes to their swishes is a chore that you find vicious after a meal that's delicious and your one and only wish is to have a hand to lend a hand like a handyman to clean the pan, just raise your hand and the money to hire a brand new butler. I'm Carl Azuz. Before we part for the weekend, for 10 out of 10 today, do you want to build a snowman? Well, whether or not you do, it's probably not going to be quite this big. This is a snow monster, a snow megalodon, a snowman. It's 15 feet tall. A family in Iowa put this thing together. The young man who led the way happens to be 6 feet 3 inches tall, and he used an 8-foot ladder to top it off. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was this thing. The builders just kept adding to it whenever they could. When folks are home and frozen too, the next right thing may be to venture into the unknown, avoid getting lost in the woods, and ask every friend who doesn't have a frozen heart if they want to build a snowman. Hey, some things never change. Coincidentally, it's a school in... If you think I'm loud, this hotline's a scream. The idea, you call it, you scream, you hang up. You maybe go to the website and hear other callers' screams. The hotline was created by an elementary school teacher. It says whether people are unhappy, terrified, frustrated, or elated, they have perfectly good reasons to scream. Tens of thousands have reportedly called to do this. So it's obviously struck a vocal chord, a cry for yelp from thousands who want to let it all shout. Of course, critics might howl in protest, supporters might shriek with laughter, but I guess if all the voices are raised in high-pitched humor, all's well that ends well. Hey, we want to give a shout to... Quick, count the elk. We'll give you a second. Okay, that's good. If you didn't say about 4,200, you're wrong. At least that's how many one biologist counted from these pictures. There were major wildfires in Colorado last year, so wildlife officials wanted to see how bad the impact was on herds of elk. The good news, officials who used GPS technology to count the animals say their herds appear to be in good shape. Which is elk sighting in itself. There are thousands of their elk, which is what elkspert investigators want to see. Call it a search for antlers, call it a cattle call. But even if the elk themselves wanted to hoof it, it made for some puns as smooth as silk. And that's exactly what we're all about, dear. I'm Carl Azuz. First shout out of the week goes... Too bad I've already done a bunch of Frozen puns this year because this would have been a really cool opportunity. Guess I'll have to let it go. You're taking a virtual stroll through an ice castle. Several of these have been hand sculpted throughout America, each one measuring about an acre in size and weighing more than 20 million pounds. Took dozens of artists to put this together. LED lights were used to illuminate it, and the castles are built near lakes and other water sources so that when they melt, the liquid has somewhere to go. So there'll be no floods to feudal over, no medieval intent, no towering controversies for cities and towns to joust over day and night, just crystal castles drawbridging together everyone with a ticket and a moat of transportation who doesn't mind catching cold when walking through a winter wonderland. Chinoot is a fun... Hey, speaking of dogs, it's America's first dogs that are the subject of our last story today. Champ and Major have arrived at the White House. They're the canine best friends of President Joe Biden. Former President Donald Trump didn't have pets at the White House during his term. He was the first president since Andrew Johnson not to. Former President Barack Obama got Bo during his first term, and Sonny came along 4 years later. And former President George W. Bush had Barney, Miss Beasley, and a cat named India. The truth is, cats and dogs haven't been the only pets at the president's residence.
Calvin Coolidge also had quite the menagerie. A bobcat, a pygmy hippo named Billy, lion cubs, and even a raccoon. William Taft had a cow named Pauline, the last cow to graze on the White House lawn. You could say President Theodore Roosevelt had a zoo of sorts at his White House. Parrots, bears, zebras, and yes, a one-legged chicken. But dogs have certainly been the most popular. President Warren G. Harding's dog Laddie-Boy was the first dog to be regularly covered in the national press. Herbert Hoover had a dog he called King Tut. Franklin D. Roosevelt's Scottish Terrier was named Fala. A statue of Fala is featured beside Roosevelt in the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial in Washington, D.C., the only presidential pet with such an honor. George W. Bush had Barney, Bill Clinton, Buddy. Gerald Ford had a golden retriever named Liberty. Lyndon Johnson brought beagles named him and her to the White House. JFK had a dog named Pushinka, a gift from the Soviet premier.
So it seems that many American leaders had pet projects, animals that were catapulted into the national spotlight, companions that helped menageries the pressures of office when their masters got dog tired. Some cats with 9 lives got to spend one in the first house, and even if all dogs go to heaven, who would have thought some would go from the doghouse to the White House? It's puppy food for thought, y'all. Our newest shout-out school is in... It has been said that Border Collies are the smartest breed of dog. Debate that if you want, but there is no debate that Wish and Halo, 2 Border Collies in California, have just set a Guinness World Record for performing the most tricks by 2 dogs in 1 minute. How many did they do? 28. And separately, one of them set a new record for the fastest 5-meter crawl by a dog. Wish went the distance in just over 2 seconds. Who needs Mensa when you've got Dogsa? The training they had is part of their dogma. It's one thing to know how to sit, speak, and stay. Those 2 could read at and probably crochet. Are they cute? They're I-cute, with plenty of sense to bow wow Intella ladies and intelligence. Bassick High School... Staten Island Chuck, Chattanooga Chuck, Woody the Woodchuck. How much would Woody chuck? These are the names of some lesser-known groundhogs, animals that once played a part in ancient weather forecasting and modern forecasting, at least for entertainment value. General Beauregard Lee and the famous Punxsutawney Phil also factor into this report by CNN's Allison Chinchar.
I'm CNN meteorologist Allison Chinchar. On Tuesday, Punxsutawney Phil, the most famous groundhog in all the land, is expected to make his prediction of what the weather is going to be like for the next several weeks. The question comes down to, will he see his shadow or not? Usually, for the last many years, Phil overwhelmingly has seen his shadow, meaning more winter will be expected. Since 1887, he's seen his shadow 104 times. He has only not seen his shadow about 20 times. Now, I will say in terms of accuracy, he has only been right about 50% of the time in just the last 10 years. However, year over year, his odds have been increasing and improving in the last few. The forecast for Tuesday in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania calls for snow. A lot of it. There will already likely be at least 4 to 6 inches of snow on the ground from the previous snowstorm that will be moving through the couple of days before, but additional snowfall may be coming down when he's making his prediction, which means it might be a little difficult to see his shadow. Temperatures also very cold, likely in the mid-20s, with a wind chill only in the low to mid-teens. If that works out, most likely Phil will not see his shadow, predicting an early spring. The question becomes, does Mother Nature agree with that prediction? Looking at NOAA's long-term forecast from March through May, it does look like the vast majority of the country is looking at much warmer than normal temperatures. So in theory, yes, spring is more likely to come early in terms of temperatures. We can expect wetter than normal conditions across portions of the Great Lakes and drier than normal conditions across portions of the Southwest. But if you don't like Phil's prediction, whatever it may be, the good news is there's a lot more groundhogs who also make predictions, and chances are at least one of them will give you the prediction that will make you happy.
Groundhogs are also known as whistle pigs, and I bet they'd really ham up the forecast. They'd be baking it up as they went along. Now, some might call that a pork choice. Their friends might rib them about it or bust their chops, but don't chuck the idea altogether, because turning Groundhog Day into Whistle Pig Day would leave some pickled pink. I'm Carl Azuz for CNN 10. Timberlake High School is in As forecasters predicted, several inches of snow have fallen on Washington, D.C. this week, and it ain't just people who've noticed and taken advantage. The Smithsonian released this video of 2 pandas at play at the National Zoo. Doesn't look like they need a sled, and it doesn't matter that these 2 animals are in their early 20s. They're a couple of cubs in the snow. Well, there's nothing wrong with taking a day to chill. They have below zero reasons not to fancy a flurry of frolicking fun, and that's exactly the kind of ecstasy to give us all a little bam boost. We're glad they didn't flake out. Hey, we hear it's also snowy in Elkin. The tallest chimney in Europe is at a power station in Slovenia. It stretches more than 1,180 feet into the sky, and after weeks of preparations, with holds fastened to the tower specifically for them, 2 athletes decided to try to free climb it last fall. Speaking of fall, there were some. Thankfully, they had ropes. And after 7 hours and 32 minutes of climbing, they reached the top of the world's tallest artificial multi-pitch route. If the fear of heights is at the height of fear it seems, why not try to climb a chimney just to let off some steam? It takes power to ascend a tower up in the clouds. You've got to vent your fear. Don't give it rise, just funnel it out. You've got to take it one hold at a time like climbing a ladder. You've got to make up your mind to put your mind over the matter. And if the words don't look down, cloud up your head and start to pound it, remember, it takes Santa's chimney magic just to come down it. Woo! These pun raps are a tall order. You know it's not? Shouting... Lesser known Olympic sports. Steeplechase, the kind with people, not horses. Skateboarding, men's and women's street and park events are set to be in the Olympics for the first time this summer in Tokyo. Table tennis and soccer, they've been part of the games for a while. But there's a new sport called tech ball that combines elements of both ping pong and soccer. To play it, you've got to use your head, you can't use your hands, and organizers hope it too will one day be featured in the Olympics.
Our biggest goal was to get more female participation in the United States and throughout the globe. We had a lot of time to really sit down and kind of jot out exactly what our mission is going to be and exactly what we foresee with this club. And so from that, in months of work and planning, we were able to launch Bellatech, the first all-female tech ball club in the world. So.
Founded in Budapest, Hungary back in 2014. Over the course of time it's grown and compounded via the power of social media and several notable athletes playing the sport across the world, to the point where our North Star right now is to be an Olympic sport by 2028. As part of that mission statement, we have launched Tech Ball here in LA and globally as well, where we have national tech ball federations across the world as of today, and basically tech ball clubs across the USA right
now. We want to see really a wave of a new era of a sport come to the United States. It's emerging and it's growing and spreading like wildfire already.
So would you describe that as high-tech or low-tech? Are the touches considered technical or techniball? Do servers go on the tech? Are hecklers called techlers? Are champions technicians, and do championships feature pyrotechnics? For the answers to all these questions, tech balls in your court. I'm Carl Azuz. Today's show goes out to the Sergeant... If it weren't for a security camera, only one person would have ever known this had happened, and that person is Joe Oriens. He's a custodian at Ohio's Liberty Benton Middle School. Last Thursday, he casually walked out to half court, tossed a shot backwards, drained it, threw up his arms for a moment, and went back to work. But the principal saw the video and tweeted it, and now the shot seen round the world has made Oriens a living legend. More like Orion's, cause he's a star! Puns aside, when he was asked why he tried a half-court shot, Oriens responded he had just as good a chance to make that as a layup cause he's not that good. We disagree. He proves you don't need to be a pro to be amazing as well as a really good sport. Thank you for giving us a sporting chance to explain the news. Sir Robert Borden was the... When it comes to roller coasters, is there such a thing as too fast? If you said no, then you may want to start planning a trip to Six Flags Qiddiya. It's set to open near Saudi Arabia's capital in 2023, and it will feature this: a thrill ride called Falcon's Flight that's set to break world roller coaster records for height, length, and speed. How high? 525 feet. How long? 2.5 miles. How fast? 155 miles per hour. Buckle up, y'all. Because it's on track to feel off the track, flinging first drop fans into a flying, free-falling frenzy that's sure to throw them for a loop as it goes out and back on an elevated airtime dive that gives a lift and tests nerves of steel as it barrel rolls on like a runaway train. Yes. Today's shout-out goes out to... "Fourscore and 7 years ago," well, actually a lot less than that, was when an artistically inclined man in New York became dedicated to the proposition of sculpting snow. His latest effort has neighbors and passersby stopping, staring, and snapping pictures. Robert Schott says conditions were just right. First, there was snow. He wasn't traveling, he was healthy, he didn't have to commute to work in the city. And while his sculpture may perish from the earth, his community's admiration lives on. What a great way to be linking the past to the present. Maybe in future years he'll be biding his time, trying to trump his previous efforts, bringing Barack such a George's tradition that takes a clean ton of time, but still pushes him to begin afresh each year by cartooning out sculptures that never get jer old. Presidential puns, they command respect. Want to give a shout out to the Conrad Schools. From tiger cars to courtroom cats. Virtual meetings just ain't the same as in-person ones. This is from a recent courtroom hearing in Texas. One of the lawyers didn't quite look himself.
Can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I'm prepared to go forward with it. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
Au contraire, the judge later said if a child used your computer, check the video options to be sure filters are off. Because otherwise, your colleagues may think you're kidding around, and they may say obnoxious things like, "You seem catatonic. Are you feline okay? Have you got cat scratch fever? Do you need a bit of milk? Have you just had a fancy feast? How many lives you got left? Did something rub you the wrong way? Have you been out littering? Has cat got your tongue? And how in the world do you move on from all that?" I'm Carl Azuz with Cat Puns for CNN 10. This show goes out to life. We're not coming in from the cold just yet. There are some upsides to living in a winter wonderland. Over a period of 6 years, a father in the European nation of Latvia built a bobsled track. And now we finally know how people get into this sport. The track is more than 550 feet long. The man says he used old furniture to build it and only spent maybe $60 for the screws that hold it all together. His motivation, his love of building, the love of his kids, and the desire to keep them from sitting in front of screens during the winter. "Hey Billy, I got a new Hot Wheels track." "Hey Timmy, I got a new bobsled track." And now the kids can talk bobsled smack. It's like a winter slip and slide. It's an ice treat you can ride. And if that Olympic-sized effort doesn't slide those kids into the Olympic Games, well, maybe it's them who are just slipping off track. I'm Carl Azuz, and you know who's not slipping? For 10 out of 10, is it possible to spend $5 million caring for a dog? One woman is about to find out. This is Lulu. She's an 8-year-old border collie whose owner recently died. He left a family friend in charge of the dog, and his will set aside a sum of $5 million to help care for Lulu. The animal's new caretaker says she doesn't really know what to make of all this, but that she's willing to try to spend the money for Lulu. Well, the money has gone to the dog, and we don't know what Lulu's going to do when she gets her paws on all that. Maybe her dreams border on collaring her own sheep to herd. Maybe she's ready to trade the rough life to embark on something new. One thing you can make no bones about, that inheritance has just made Lulu a slumdog millionaire. Stadium High School, So just how big a drawing can one person do with a marker? That was the challenge for an art teacher in Philadelphia, and this is the work she drew. It apparently set a record for the largest drawing ever made by an individual. Its size, 6,450 square feet. Its features, sky and sea with city buildings in between. Its total time to complete, 63 hours. The work is made up of the kind of doodles you might have done in class, just a wee bit bigger. So I guess it was a pretty Sharpie idea to cray all over the room, because in making her mark, she met the mark while marking up the floor in a mark or break record attempt that is pretty remarkable. We'll just have to see how permanent it is. Shout out today goes out to Rising Sun High School. Tips for setting a new Guinness World Record. Take a look at the old record and then build something 91% bigger. That's what the makers of this snow maze did in Manitoba, Canada. Their latest creation covers about 240,000 square feet. That's a larger amount of space than 4 football fields. They started building it in mid-December and just opened on Valentine's Day, and they plan to keep it open through March, weather permitting. Until they know which path to take, some may feel like the walls are closing in. There are a labyrinth of possibilities, and wrong choices can lead to dead ends. But it's something built for both amazement and amusement. Finding the quickest way to the exit is kind of the whole point, because after all, making your way through a maze is a rite of passages. I'm Carl Azuz. Want to give a shout out to our viewers and Super Swim Brothers kind of sounds like an underwater version of Super Mario Brothers, but on the Bismarck High School boys swim team in North Dakota, 12 of the 26 athletes are brothers, as in brothers. Specifically, we're talking about Braxton, Isaac, Austin, Garrett, Bennett, Bryce, Jackson, Connor, Josiah, Micah, Blake, and Max. It's like cheaper by the dozen in the pool, and the competitive spirit's high because none of these guys wants to lose to his brother. Does that threaten their brotherly love? They're still their brother's keeper. And while the goggles might have them wondering, "Oh brother, where art thou?" they're still there to help each brother bear the brothersome burden of competition, saying, "Brother, let me be your shelter," with the bond of brothers flowing strongly through this band of brothers. Oh brother. Today's shout out goes out to From trying to catch it, to enjoying fresh eggs, to frying it up. There are many fun things you can do with the chicken, but putting one on a sled? 10 out of 10. Hey look, here are some beautiful pictures of the snow. Who cares? Get to the chicken. That's more like it. This chicken's name is Donut. Excellent start. And when the kids on this farm in Tennessee go sledding, Donut comes along. Now before you say, "Psh, they're only just holding her on the sled." Not so fast, hater. Donut sleds solo, and nothing about this exceptional scene suggests she sees sledding as a foul idea. The question is, did she get any coaching? She looks like she's having an orping ton of fun in the silky snow, and they didn't have to Aaron con her into it. She looks like she was hoping for snow all well summer, and if the visibility gets bad, she could always use her foghorn leghorn. I mean, Donut should count herself lucky that she has such a winging family. I'm Carl Azuz, and I get to make chicken puns for CNN 10. Shout out to Mandan High School in Man. According to Moving.com, hiring professionals to move you to a new home costs anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 on average. But what about moving a home itself? A 139-year-old Victorian residence measuring 80 feet long. Developers wanted to put apartments in its old location, so the owner spent $400,000 to have it towed 6 blocks. plain sight. They must have had to search high and bungalow to find the craftsmen needed for such a non-traditional relocation. We don't know if they had a tutor, but to get a house Victorian into its new home, you need more than mid-century modern ideas. You need a revival of innovation so the project doesn't turn out raunchy. That brings us home for the day. I'm Carl Azuz, and I'm shouting out Walt. We've heard of the eye of the tiger, the roar of the tiger, paper tigers, and a neon tiger, but this is the first time we've heard of a singing tiger. Fascinating. Let's hear more. I think we need to work on your pitch. Has Cat got your tongue? Well, I think you can advance, but you'll be working with Lionel Richie. So this is what's being called a singing tiger. He's an 8-month-old male cub at a Siberian zoo who's able to hit high notes that other tigers can't. Officials say he's not in pain. This is just what he does to get attention. Tiger, tiger, burning bright, in the music halls of night, it's not in roars that you delight or purrs and furs that others might. You're a cat of different stripes, hitting high notes with your pipes. On the prowling Cajun meadow, from the pitch of your falsetto, you're a rebel without cause, lifting voice through open jaws, singing not just for applause, but just because you can, entertaining beast and man. Apologies to William Blake, shout out to Waterville Senior. On the opposite end of the dolphin spectrum, in terms of numbers at least, is the common dolphin. How common is it? Well, exact numbers are hard to come by, but these mammals are often found in pods by the thousand. They're common in all over the world, they're neither endangered nor threatened, and when they stampede, so to speak, they're a sight to see for sightseers. It's amazing how they don't get bottlenosed together, especially without any social distance. They Bellu gotta be so coordinated to know who's got the right of whale. They must have gotten organized on the Dolph Internet. I hear they run a killer podcast. This is terrible. Before we Dolph finish for the day, want to give a shout out to Sirocco High School. You guys Sirocco. According to the British Broadcasting Corporation, Germany dropped more than 7,000 explosives on the southwestern English city of Exeter during World War II. One of them just blew up. Boom. No one was hurt. This was a controlled explosion carried out by police last weekend, a day after the 80-year-old device was discovered by builders. Officials evacuated thousands of people from the area before setting the bomb off. It reportedly left a crater as big as a double-decker bus and caused significant damage to some buildings nearby. We thank you for giving us your CNN attention today. It is our CNN intention to CNN 10 to more news and puns tomorrow, because a show without those would be pun thinkable, pun acceptable, pun funny, pun popular, and pun like us. You guys are a model audience. Pizza and dessert is a very popular combo, unless you're counting carbs or sticking to a sort of paleo diet. And dessert pizzas are like 2 high-calorie meals in one. They come in all kinds of combinations, like chocolate chip cookie pizza, cinnamon roll pizza, or peanut butter cup pizza. But a restaurant in the U.S. state of Iowa has stirred curiosity, compliments, controversy, and criticism for a concoction with a cereal that dates back 7 decades.
It starts like any other pizza, but then things start to get a little loopy.
There's a fruity delight in every bite of this.
But is it a delight when it's Fruit Loops pizza? Fong's Pizza in Des Moines, Iowa bills it as a breakfast and dessert pizza.
The Fruit Loops obviously bring the sweetness and the crunch.
But others call it a crime against humanity, an abomination to pizza everywhere. That looks like something you'd see on a New York City sidewalk after the St. Patrick's Day parade.
We've seemed to really make some people angry.
As an Italian, I am formally declaring war on Iowa. Fong's Pizza actually dreamed up what they call Loopy Fruits Pizza 6 years ago.
We're all sitting at a table and somebody goes, well, what about Fruit Loops?
But it never quite took off. Now they're relaunching it using cream cheese, then the Fruit Loops, sprinkled with a bit of mozzarella, and drizzled with a sauce made from yogurt and sweet condensed milk.
The color, the taste, the aroma.
The infamy! The creators of Fruit Loops Pizza are basking in the attention. Fruit Loops may never replace pepperoni, but to its makers...
It's quite delicious.
But to an impartial reporter from Axios...
It was all right. It definitely reminded me of like when you were a kid and you just put like random things together.
Like in the Princess Diaries, when a pizza topped with M&Ms arrived. For $19, you can get a large Loopy Fruits pizza.
I ate about one slice of it. Yeah, I gave it a good try.
Health nuts won't go great nuts for that, but it is a golden crisp idea. Maybe another maker will add a little Cap'n Crunch to their pizza, thanking their lucky charms that tricks aren't just for kids. Maybe Count Chocula himself will honeycomb the aisles, getting his kicks out of a recipe that smacks of Apple Jacks and Snap Crackle Pops with Krispies. It's certainly food for thought. West Memphis, Arkansas. A lot of folks, like me, have pored over old family photographs, looking at faces we remember from our childhood, maybe some who left this world long ago. A genealogy website is breathing new life into old pictures. It has a program called Deep Nostalgia that uses artificial intelligence technology to subtly animate still pictures. It's not perfect. The likeness depends on the quality, the angles, and the lighting of the photos you have. And you can only do this for a limited time before you have to pay for the service. But the company MyHeritage is taking still snapshots from the past, ones that could have been captured before motion pictures existed, and giving them movement and the appearance of life. You can't put it past people to utilize present tools to bring history back to the future. Doing that fits into our genealogic. It helps you picture things as they might have been, to thaw frozen expressions into animotion, and to photo grab hold onto a simpler time. I'm Carl Azuz for CNN 10. Shout out goes... While we're on the subject of time, if you want to have a lot of it, doctors say staying active is key. It improves your balance and brain health. It helps ward off diseases. A crossing guard in South Carolina has found a way to follow this advice and keep working well into her 90s.
In the middle, I let them out. And I stopped this traffic, and I stopped this, and let the school traffic out. Simple.
At the young age of 94, just 6 years short of a century.
You said everybody listens to you.
They listen.
Nobody pushing you over because you're 94.
No.
Miss Estella Williams starts and ends every day right here in the center lane of the 28 bypass, just outside of Westside High School.
It's good. I enjoy doing it.
At the reins of controlling the people at the wheel, this all started as a temporary gig.
My son-in-law, he was a policeman there, and he needed somebody, and he asked me if I'd help him a few days.
That few days was 25 years ago. She's been stop sign in hand since.
Oh yeah, so I don't let nobody stay too long, so I try to keep it going.
No signs of slowing down.
Easy. Stop the cars, tell the children to come up.
And no signs of aging.
Yeah, keep the kids safe. And the people.
She's not planning on leaving that center lane anytime soon.
Maybe I'll give it another year or so. Just treat everybody right. That's my motto.
Will she ever stop and go do something else? Why cross that bridge? She's keeping things in motion, minding her business, helping people cross while never being crossed. All in all, she's doing a guard job one step at a time of helping people from all walks of life stay off the street. I'm Carl Azuz, and Fridays are Austin? Fleets Fleets of six-wheeled robots are appearing in some communities and carrying food with them. They can cost an estimated $5,500 each, and somebody has to run them, so they require some upfront investment. They could take delivery drivers' jobs, and there have been instances when they've been kicked over by passers-by. But when everything goes right...
A Friday afternoon at Bridgewater State University, and it's not just students roaming through campus.
Many thanks.
At the lunchtime hour, more than a dozen robots are hard at work.
We are doing about 750 deliveries a week.
Sodexo teamed up with Starship Technologies at more than a dozen colleges to bring robots onto campus that operate almost entirely autonomously. A contactless delivery that starts with ordering off the app, a delivery fee included. The food is then loaded and locked. One robot per customer with tracking capability.
You can get that accuracy down to a couple centimeters around the bot as opposed to GPS, which could sometimes be a few meters.
Here's your delivery.
The order unlocked through the push of a button on the app.
Oh, thanks.
From Starbucks to a slew of lunch options.
I usually order from Bear's Den. It's like probably a 15-minute walk from my dorm room. So having it delivered, especially when it's cold like this, is just super convenient.
The robots have 10 cameras, are water resistant, and can make their way through 6 inches of snow.
At certain crossings in areas where the robot may need a little help, which is designated beforehand, if we notice that there's a certain busy intersection, we can have some intervention by someone who's remote on a computer at one of these campuses.
Anyone on campus, not just students, can order.
We're looking to expand even more as time goes on to bring them to other campuses.
10 more robots will be added this fall. The delivery options could extend well beyond food.
I could see, textbooks for sure, convenience like C-store items.
At 4 miles per hour, it's not exactly fast food, but it would be fun to order to go and then watch it go as long as no one takes out your takeout. If it can keep rolling while you get your steps in, you'll be eating on the run, and it serves up a perfect example of Meals on Wheels. All right. I'm Carl Azuz. Pioneer High School is... So back in the day, like the 1600s, letters were sometimes locked. They were intricately folded and sealed to become their own envelopes. Hundreds of these locked letters that couldn't be delivered between 1689 and 1706 were stored in a postmaster's trunk in the Netherlands. They were given to a museum in 1926, and conservators didn't want to open and potentially damage them. But X-ray scanners and computer algorithms were recently used to extract a letter's words without actually unfolding the document. It revealed a request from one cousin to another for the death certificate of a relative. Researchers don't know why it wasn't delivered, but it's a new glimpse into the daily lives of people who lived ages ago. Makes you wonder what the others contain. Maybe an unpatented patent that's now a patent mystery. Maybe an ungranted grant that would have granted rights to the letter. How many documents remained locuments? How many settlements remained unsettled? Did a pact get packed before it could ever make an impact? Did star-crossed lovers never get to envelope? These mysteries can now unfold. Benton High School in Benton... Some people never smile when they see a snake. But this snake appears to smile at us. This is a lavender albino piebald ball python. Of course, and it's got smiley faces on it. A professional reptile breeder was trying to see if he could breed a snake with specific color patterns. This was kind of a happy accident. The uniquely patterned python sold for $6,000, leaving a smile on the breeder's face. The question one might ask is, would people be rattled if peculiar patterns were to sidewind their way into other breeds? What if someone co-brought out a silver copperhead or a petunia pit viper? Would it be too constrictive of a buyer's budget, or viper it out completely? Or could a creatively colored cottonmouth become a great idea? I'm Coral Azuz, happy to slither out of snake puns on CNN 10. Wall High School, you were... Our last story's for the birds. They can be so graceful in the air, but one of these at least needs to work on the landings. This is a northern royal albatross. It's okay, maybe a little embarrassed. The breed can soar for hours over the ocean, but when it came to touching down at this nest in New Zealand, well, one of them face planted right in front of a 6-month-old chick. It's like, don't try this at home, kids. Nest time, don't be in such a thrush. Oh, you can parrot your long flight all you want, but when you come beak, the cardinal rule is to stork the landing. That way the kids won't be peregrining like you just got albatrossed to the ground. I mean, the whole thing looked like a landfowl. I'm Carl Azuz. Some of you are in... Artworks, baseball cards, historic musical instruments, and dinosaur skeletons. We've covered auctions on this show before. This one constitutes a virtual field trip to the Bahamas, where you can get your own private island. Little Ragged Island is the biggest one for sale in the nation. It's got 730 acres for your resort and golf course, deep water access for your large ships, an airstrip on a nearby island for your planes, and it's only a 10-minute boat ride from there. You need $100,000 to bid on it, but after that, you might be able to snag it for less than its $19.5 million listing price. Or you might not. But if your plans to land an island and shore up your days in sun, surf, and sand to roll the paradise out just like you plan to own trees in the palms of your hand, it's a peach when the beach is in reach at your side, and it's fine when the time coincides with the tide. If your day-by-day stay becomes a vacation, float a boat and a note you wrote to denote the notion that's our invitation, and we'll see you on Island Time. Hey, speaking of time, be sure to... There are different levels of Star Wars fans out there. These guys have got to be at the top. They recently built a massive replica of the Bounty Hunter's Razor Crest gunship seen in the Mandalorian series. The model actually used for that series was only 2 feet long. Most of the shots on film are computer generated. But this Russian fan's replica is more life-sized, 45 feet long. Private sponsors, a fan, and a friend who sold his car all chipped in. Having a car is stellar, but having a spaceship is interstellar. Of course, it might have caused some grief to see the car go. Some critics might have called it Bo-Katan crazy, but the fans would have said at least they care enough to do such a good job. It really was for a good replica, and they'd probably do it all Mandalore again. I'm Carl Azuz. Ben... I'm not so sure that rescuing a cat from a tree would be the easiest assignment for a firefighter. It would depend on the size and the scarediness of the cat. This one, though, recently did its part to help out. After it reportedly spent 48 hours in the branches, rescuers in London were called, they raised a ladder, and they were about to climb up to fetch the kitty. That's when Kitty rescued itself, calmly making its way down the ladder. 10 out of 10. The cat might have been on its last rung before the rescue, but it didn't have to be roped in or pullied down once firefighters came. Taking it step by step, the courageous kitty extensioned itself a bit, catchiously meowing down to a landing on its 4 feet without ever going off the rails. Great Falls is... For our last story today, there's a newly opened hotel in China that says whether you're eating, playing, or sleeping, polar bears will keep you company. This is said to be the world's first polar bear hotel. Rooms range in price from $300 to $350 per night, and the hotel promises visitors will be able to see the animals round the clock from its 21 guest rooms. Animal rights activists oppose this venue, saying polar bears don't belong in zoos or hotels. A spokeswoman for the hotel says the indoor enclosure is only part of the animal's habitat and that they're allowed to roam outside when the temperature and air quality allow. The hotel says it's fully booked through its trial period. Some might check out at the idea of sleeping near a polar bear. Bed and breakfast sounds more appetizing when you're not the breakfast. But others will be quick to sign their names on the register. They'll want to stay and go tell they got into the hotel, and their friends' reactions are sure to be polarizing. I'm Carl Azuz with some Ursa majorly bad puns on CNN 10. Want to give a shout out to... At first, this almost looks like an impressionist painting of the beach, the kind of art you'd see in a coastal condominium. But this is a motion picture of a beach that is frozen. The scene is Ogunquit Beach in southwestern Maine. The man who recently recorded it said it was 12 degrees Fahrenheit outside at the time. That is not including wind chill. Salt water has to be about 28 degrees to freeze. It has a lower freezing temperature than fresh water, so that gives you a sense of how cold it had to get to turn waves into icy ridges. Oh sure, the video makes waves and is really ice to look at, and you probably wouldn't get a sunburn with all that ice, baby. But no one ever says, jump on in, the water's freezing, and that is a deceptive way to sell ices at the beach, so I'll hold off until the surf and the temperature are both back up. I'm Carl Azuz. Virtual museum tours have seen an uptick since this COVID thing happened, but how many of them do you get to control yourself? Here's one. The art gallery at Virginia's Old Dominion University wanted to offer tours for people at home, so they invented Gordon, which is kind of like a Segway with an iPad on it. And for $15 or less for ODU students, people can remotely operate Gordon, taking a virtual and robotic tour through the gallery. One interesting and amusing segue and remote of transportation to rover around, then you can't galleryally be there to canvas the site at art appreciation. That's like a curated collage of puns that decorates our show this Friday, because Fridays are artsome. I'm Carl Azuz, and it's time for us to park for the West. Danny Griffiths is a surfer who lost his favorite surfboard in 2017. At the time, he was on a monstrous wave near the Australian island of Tasmania. He had to jump off as the wave closed down, and despite looking for hours, his group never found the board. A year and a half later, two fishermen picked up the surfboard in Australian waters about 1,700 miles away from where Griffiths lost it. They held on to it, and they recently returned it to Griffiths after word finally reached him that his long-lost board was rescued at sea. Well, that's our wrap on current events. It's amazing how they're shaped by time and tide as we drift around the globe, trying to keep you on the crest of everything we've got on deck from nose to tail. Hopefully you didn't find anything too boring, because surf's back up tomorrow, and we hope you'll hang CNN 10 with us again then. West Caldwell High... A mask was recently discovered in central China. You might be like, some of us are wearing masks now. Well, this one is worth more than its weight in gold, cause it is gold, and it's believed to be 3,000 years old. This is from a giant trove of artifacts found at a Chinese archaeological site. Scientists have uncovered tens of thousands of buried relics here since a farmer accidentally unearthed some in the 1920s. Researchers say ancient ceremonial pits were dug here, and in recent decades they've yielded artifacts made from bronze, ivory, jade, and bone. Experts are hoping this will shed light on China's ancient Shu kingdom. Not a lot is known about it, except that it was conquered in the year 316 BC. So there's no masking researchers' excitement. They describe the gold mask kind of like we describe Fridays. Aurum! What more could AU want? It's always fun for alchemy to report on, and while it's probably a lot heavier than the plastic COVID masks we wear these days, it'd be fool's gold not to at least try it. I'm Carl Azuz. Lehighton, Pennsylvania is... Therapy dogs can be amazing companions. The American Kennel Club says they may help reduce people's anxiety and blood pressure, that they can help people cope with emotional and physical hardships. They're often used to help patients in hospital settings, but a medical center in Boston, Massachusetts has a completely different way of thinking when it comes to therapy dogs.
Dr. Spot, please report to the ER, stat. That's what they did at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston.
Test the robot actually in the emergency department.
With a computer tablet for a head. Beaming the faces of ER doctors able to interact with patients from a COVID-safe distance. Not to mention
cameras that could then also sense vital signs like heart rate, respiratory rate, oxygen levels.
But they weren't so much testing the robotics. They were more interested in whether patients would accept Dr. Spot. The Boston Dynamics RoboDog has been humanized through dance videos. And even pulling Santa's sleigh in an earlier version. The last time we recall a doctor having a robo-dog, Doctor Who did things like play chess with him.
Your move, master.
I know it's my move. Don't flash your eyes at me.
Dr. Spot didn't flash his eyes at anyone, but would you want to see this? Charging at you when you're sick?
Well, I think that's exactly what we wanted to de-risk.
MIT Assistant Professor Giovanni Traverso says the RoboDog was spot on with the 40 patients they sicked him on.
The robot looks like a dog, and I think dogs too are endearing to many, and so actually the reception was very positive.
Unlike at a previous press demo, Professor Traverso says there were no accidents in the ER. Jeannie Mose, CNN, New York.
The hospital is doggedly determined to provide service. Is it warm and fuzzy? No. Will it therapize the patients and give them peace of mind? Some will say it's spot on. Some will say it's just what the doctor ordered. But critics might want someone to lift their spirits instead of just its leg, and they may say the whole hospital's going to the dogs. Hey, speaking of going places... Turns out the phrase, music soothes the savage beast, is not an exact quote. That's how many people know the line, which came from a play written in 1697 by William Congreve. But even though the words in the modern phrase are a little bit different, they apply exactly to what's been going on at a zoo in Colombia. So before we go today, sit back, relax, and take a listen. They may be thinking, please don't stop the music. It may be Mozartistic music to their ears. But watch out if the lions join in the chorus and say, if music be the food of love, play on, because that could be a sour note that signals treble, and you'll want to jump Bach and keep your composure. If you're close to the clef of their enclosure when the savage beasts decide it's feeding time, you just never know what they'll zoo. I know what the students of Axtell High If you give an aspiring engineer enough PVC pipe, 2x4s, sandbags, and cinder blocks, and then you let him work for a few weeks, it's amazing what he can build. At least, it is if he's Ben Tolliday, a Georgia student who constructed a thrill ride in his backyard. We don't know how much the materials cost, but we do know it works, and that his mother is proud, though she says she's looking forward to getting her yard back. It won't be to her amusement, and she will not find it thrilling if he dips, dives, turns, rolls out, and coasts off to college while leaving a construction project on track in her yard. He may ask, why wouldn't you want it? But if she's steeled in her determination not to have her yard marred by a twisted venture, she may not let that train leave the station until the coaster's cleared. Shout out to Antilles High. Let's say you're wandering around Washington State one night and you just happen to look up and see this. You're probably going to have some questions. Was it a shooting star, meteor shower, comet, or aliens? Experts say probably not. They believe it was the remains of a SpaceX rocket that recently carried dozens of satellites into orbit. The rocket apparently didn't burn up properly and caused the light show instead. It wasn't expected to hurt anything. Does this mean there's nothing to atmosphere? Does it go against outdoor burning laws? At least the cleanup will be a debris. It's as fast as a rocket and plays a starring role in the night sky, even if at the end of the day, you're witnessing a breakup. I'm Carl Azuz for CNN 10. Well, this is something new. An artist creates a portrait of a humanoid robot. After that, the robot paints its own interpretation of the portrait. Then, the robot's painting, along with a 12-second video clip of the robot doing the painting, goes up for auction. And finally, a human pays more than $688,000 for it. The video clip was offered as a non-fungible token, a new way to prove you own a digital artwork even if it's widely shared. Now some of you may be thinking, you've gotta be kidding me. Why then go to the trouble of paying your hard-earned Monet to O'Keefe some Pizarro digital token that anyone else could Goya download with Matisse? I guess if you've got the Chagall to take the Volas guesswork out of who its true claper is, you can callow yourself its one and only Michelangelo. Marlborough, Massachusetts. A non-stop flight between Japan and California covers about 5,500 miles and takes between 10 and 12 hours. But it could be just 3 hours if the Ariane AS-3 gets off the ground. This is a concept of a passenger plane that could travel faster than Mach 4, 3,800 miles per hour. It hasn't been built yet, but if and when that happens, its makers say it could carry as many as 50 passengers at supersonic speeds by the end of the decade. Some will like the sound of that. It's plain to see why this would make a boom in the industry. And there's probably some cabin pressure on airlines to climb higher and fly faster when the sky's the limit. But before we buckle up and make sure our tray tables are in the upright and locked position, let's get our heads out of the clouds and take a deep breath through our oxygen masks, because this project needs to take flight before we can look out the window and see the future. This is your Captain Carl Azuz reporting for CNN 10, Concordia Lutheran. Unlike my good friend here, cats do whatever they want, and it's hard to get them to go along with your plan. Hence the expression, it's like herding cats. Maybe because they're said to have 9 lives, they just never grow up. I mean, many of us when we're kids have different ideas than our parents about how we're going to go about things in life. Even bear cubs, for instance, sometimes want to take a different path. And it's not so much a question about why Mama Bear crossed the road as it is how she did it with 3 wayward cubs.
Mama Bear and 4 cubs stopped traffic in Connecticut trying to cross a road. Mom has her paws full, not to mention her mouth. A 3rd cub crosses. No, make that prances to the other side. 3 across and 1 to go. Uh-oh, the 4th cub is up a pole. Mom to the rescue, but wait, someone's back. It can be a drag wrangling 4 little ones. This is something any human mom can relate to.
Go, babies, go!
Robin Cavelli, mother of 4, shot the video and said of the pole climber in particular,
"He reminded me so much of my son. I could just hear myself yelling, 'Get down off of that pole! Get across the street! You're making a scene here!'"
Someone on Twitter posted, "Aw, someone should get out of their car and help." Somebody else put the wise in wise guy by replying, "You want to be mauled? Because that's how you get mauled." Meanwhile, Mom was gently mauling her babies. Robin Cavelli's takeaway?
Just how hard it is to be a mom, and especially 4 babies, and I really felt for the mom.
And just when it seemed all 4 were safely across, one of the cubs made a break for it, crossing the double yellow line. Mom was forced once again to take matters into her mouth as another cub followed in her footsteps. Aww. This is the kind of behavior that inspires lame jokes like, "Why did the bear cross the road to get to the other cub?" Jeannie Murph, CNN, New York.
Love to know what she was thinking though. Cub on! Why cubbn't you be more like your brother? Just because we cub to a fork in the road doesn't mean you need to combine to become so unbearable. How do you expect me to be a good parent when I have to bear up under such a burden as this whole cub and caboodle? I'm Cubble Azuz, and this is CNN 10. Over the years during the Easter season, we've covered a lot of peeps. Peep portraits, peep collections, peep jousting. Today we're covering peep art. This is an exhibit at an art museum in Wisconsin. All your peeps are there. The Mona Peepsa, a Sue Peep court justice, peeps peep-haired with peep PE. So if you want to do something sweet with someone special, peep on over and give Peep a chance. If before you fall asleep you find that you were counting peep instead of sheep because it's something sweet that in your dreams you savor, bring your appetite to this exhibit. Feast your eyes and try to give it time because you just might find a mine of artificial flavor. Bring your peeps to peep the treat. Who cares if they've never heard of it? It won't be there forever. Well, it might. It's got preservatives. But if you're feeling blue number one and nothing leaves you sugared out, get into your car now, bud. The peeps can help you marshmallow out. Ithaca High School in... We start today's 10 out of 10 segment with an age-old question. Does chocolate ever go bad? Well, take a bite out of this and you'll find out. It was recently discovered in an attic in the United Kingdom. It was ordered up by Queen Victoria in 1900 as a gift for soldiers fighting in the war, the Boer War. The serviceman who received it probably kept it as a memento in its original wrapping and tin. Experts say you wouldn't want to eat it. Which makes the discovery kind of bittersweet because there are 100 grand reasons why it's a chocolate of fun to get your butterfingers betwixt the mounds of crunch from each crackly bite of chunky, whatchamacallit, good bar that brings all of us almond joy. I'm Carl Azuz for CNN 10, and Mount Horeb is... The United States and Japan have become close allies since World War II, and decades before the war, the friendship between the Japanese and the American people was demonstrated in mutual gifts of trees. In 1912, Japan sent more than 3,000 cherry trees across the Pacific. In return, America shipped dogwood trees to Japan 3 years later. The Japanese gift bloomed into an annual highlight on Washington, D.C.'s tidal basin. Every year in late March and early April, visitors walk through a springtime wonderland of white and pink flowers. Well, trees the season. And you don't need to pedestal us on such an arboreal unreal beauty. It would give any city bracting rights to be able to branch out and show off the roots that tip the bud scales to such a cherry atmosphere. I'm Carl Azuz, and Cicero... There are several places where you don't want bees. Your porch, your bonnet, your car. But this is what happened when a man in New Mexico went grocery shopping recently. He left his windows open and 15,000 bees decided to swarm in. He called 911 for help, and that arrived in the form of an off-duty firefighter who just happens to be a beekeeper. He removed the bees from the car and took them to his own property. Don't fight the bees with water and don't fight the bees with fire. Honey, comb the apiary till you find the firefighter who saves bees by keeping them alive, whose apiculture thrives in hives. He's the best extractor, no detractor. He's the actor who can harvest colonies of bees with ease and a swarm factor. He'll be on the wing to take the swing out, moving workers and the queen out, using all these hacks to ensure it's not your beeswax. I'm Carl Azuz, and today's shout out goes out to North... According to Guinness World Records, the fastest roller coaster on the planet reaches a speed of 149 miles per hour. The longest one stretches more than 1.5 miles. The one with the most inversions turns you upside down 14 times, and the oldest coaster that's still running was built in 1912. Why are we bringing all of this up right now?
Hey Carl, in the midst of this global pandemic, we've talked a lot about how tough life has been for so many of us. I know we're all looking forward to getting back to normal after a year of ups and downs. So in the spirit of getting back to fun, today I'm going to tell you about a new roller coaster under construction that could make history. It's called the Falcon Flight. The ride will be the main attraction of Six Flags Qiddiya, which is due to open in Saudi Arabia outside the capital of Riyadh in 2023. It's set to smash all existing records for roller coaster speed, height, and track length. The coaster will travel across 2.5 miles of track. Wow. With the use of magnetic motor acceleration, riders will get to experience the sensation of diving over a vertical cliff into a 525-foot deep valley, achieving unprecedented speeds of up to 155 miles per hour. According to their press release, the Falcon Flight will take up to 20 passengers on a 3-minute-long ride, offering panoramic views at the top of what will be the world's tallest freestanding coaster structure. This roller coaster is being built by the company Intamin, which just so happens to be the creators of the world's current tallest coaster made of steel, the King de Ka, which can be found at Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey. Now, if you happen to be like me and just the thought of plunging hundreds of feet makes your stomach turn, well, there's always the lazy river. Back to you, Carl.
As long as there are thrill seekers, there will be different inversions of thrill rides. Projecting people into motion in velocities worldwide is centripetal to their very existence. Some say they're frenetic, but the truth is they're kinetic. And what people can stomach is really the only gravel limitation in harnessing all the potential energy they can and keeping riders on the hook for the rising and falling action. Fridays are awesome. Ponegants High School, what's happening? We have one more little story to tell you about today. We're taking you to a place in Germany where everything's been miniaturized. In the northern city of Hamburg, you'll find the Miniature Wonderland. It's the world's largest model railway, but it's also where other cities, nations, and landmarks have been reconstructed on a much smaller scale. And the workers there, the real ones, have just set a big musical record.
Klar, nicht alles perfekt, aber man muss einfach mal probieren, mit Weingläsern Verdi zu spielen oder noch schlimmer den Bolero, wenn man nur 2 Oktaven zur Verfügung hat. Und deswegen sage ich, dieser Weltrekord ist ein Mega-Weltrekord. Der wird uns nicht so schnell wieder genommen, da bin ich mir ganz sicher.
It's no small wonder that you can depart from a miniature airport and make trips to places like South Bantamerica. Maybe one day they'll add Babe Egypt, Minusculifornia, Sierra Leone. I guess it just depends on whatever's in their P wheelhouse if they're going to have undersized lands, pick universities, puck, etc. It's really the ceiling that's the limit, y'all. Today's shout out goes out to... For 10 out of 10, it's a traffic light. For camels, green means go, red means don't. But we wouldn't blame you if you were to ask, why, Carl, why? Well, this is stopping traffic, camel traffic, in northern China. There's a camel riding place there that's popular with tourists, and that has led to confusion and camel-involved collisions. So officials have created what they say is the first traffic signal for, you get it, camels. Now you might be wondering who came up with the idea. Were camelisions becoming too dangerous, increasing the threat of a hoof and run? Were the animals spitting at others that cut them off, starting trouble right out of the gate? Of course, it'll be the people leading the camels who actually stop and go at the signal. Letting the animals do that themselves would be too drama-daring. Woo! I'm Camel Azuz for CNN 10, Henderson County High School. Many Chihuahuas are one-family dogs. They love their one family and not much else. I had one growing up that was so sweet, unless this dude named Troy tried to pet her while I was holding her, and she tried to remove his finger. Anyway, there's one up for adoption that's far worse.
When you're trying to get someone to adopt a dog...
Prancy. Hello, Prancy.
You usually don't use phrases like neurotic, man-hating, animal-hating, children-hating, a 13-pound rage machine. Tiffany Fortuna is passionate about rescuing pets until a permanent home can be found. She says with a Chihuahua named Prancer, she tried to make him sound palatable. The problem is, he's just not. Ladies, if you have a husband, Tiffany says, don't bother applying unless you hate him. He bonds with women only. New Jersey-based Second Chance Pet Adoption League specializes in hard-to-place animals. They even made a movie trailer dedicated to Prancer.
What are you doing? Whoa.
But instead of scaring folks off, Prancer is getting hundreds of inquiries. He sounds perfect for me. When can I pick up?
People? See, this is how we meet new people and make friends.
Who needs friends? Prancer does have good points, extremely loyal, understands basic commands.
Prancer.
And also, he's only 2 years old and will probably live to be 21 through pure spite. What kind of devil dog lets you pet him and when you stop, noses you for more? Ginimos, CNN, New York.
Like any Chihuahua, Prancer will chihuahua ya. They're the smallest breed of dog, but you Chihuahua wouldn't want to say that to their face unless you have canine lives. Some say they're yappy, but the truth is they're scrappy. The miniature Chihuahua wonders of the dog world who Chihuahua will chew you out if you don't think they run it. I'm Carl Azuz. We're going to Mexico. If you happen to live near a certain pizza restaurant in Houston, Texas, and you really would prefer a robot to deliver your pizza, well, one Domino's may have exactly what you're looking for. It's working with a robot company called Neuro to get the pies from the store to your driveway. There'll be no delivery person to actually knock on your door. Still, customers can keep track of their pizzas through text alerts and real-time GPS monitoring, so there'll be less suspense about where exactly your order is. Will this soon be part of the pizza process in neighborhoods worldwide? Some experts are concerned this may not work in places with heavy or fast traffic, but it's another new way in which companies are experimenting with employing robots that go that last mile in delivery. But is there a pepperoni-do? Some might appreciate the extra ancho-visibility. They never saw such a deliverer before. But if the robot's slower than a car, the idea might seem cheesy or half-baked. You're not exactly comparing pineapples to apples, and it doesn't leave much room for error. Hey, there is one... For a dozen Magellanic penguins in Argentina, it was a big day. They were headed back out to sea. These animals were found in bad shape a while back. Conservationists say they were malnourished and dehydrated, and that caused some of them to lose their feathers that protect them from the cold. After biologists at a rescue center nursed them back to health, the animals were released recently with conservationists, visitors, and kids looking on. All of the penguins were dressed up for the occasion, wearing their tuxedos. Which was easy tuxedo. It looked like they were grinning from ear to ear, that they took one look at the ocean and wanted to flip, that they were glad to be beak. Once they got penguin to the fact that they were back home, those animals took flight. Well, actually they didn't, but I don't think flight less of them. After all, they got right back into the swim with no need to Magell panic. I'm Carl Azuz with the news. For 10 out of 10, this kind of thing might not attract much of a crowd in parts of Britain or Australia. But when officials shut down a highway in Idaho for a rancher and 2,500 sheep to cross, well, this has become a tradition in the Gem State. Every year about this time, the rancher moves his flock from his farming community to the foothills near Boise so they can munch on grass there through the summer. Highway 55 stands in their way, so with the help of handlers and some working dogs, and under the watchful eyes of excited onlookers, the flock makes its way to greener pastures. Well, why not? It's a sight to sheep. Of course folks are going to make a bo peep about it. Of course, some might think the animals are on the lamb and want to lambaste someone for this, but the rancher's not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. He just wants to flock to where the grass is greener to keep his sheep in sheep shape. It's really not a bad idea. Hey, want to give a shout out to... Best possible outcome characterizes today's 10 out of 10 segment. During a recent air show over the eastern coast of Florida, an engine failure caused a World War II era plane to go down. The pilot maneuvered it near a beach and was somehow able to avoid people, softly ditch the aircraft into the water, and walk or wade away without any major injuries. Not the kind of finale you want to be in. But if you're flexing a Texan, jockeying a Mustang, fighting fire in a Spitfire, finding it hard to steer, man, running out of air in a Corsair, or going fishing in a Swordfish, and you can be Ginger with your Avenger, there are worse things than beaching at a beach within reach of air assistance. I'm Carl Azuz for CNN 10, Hampshire High School in They're the largest members of the dog family. Male gray wolves can weigh more than 150 pounds. That's a big dog. They are strictly carnivores unless they're eating berries, and we learned that from a lone gray wolf that was tracked recently in northern Minnesota.
We know wolves don't sit around howling all day. But what do wolves do besides fend off black bears to protect their cubs? Now, thanks to the wolf collar cam, we get a wolf's eye view. Researchers at Voyageurs National Park in Minnesota fastened a collar cam on a lone wolf they'd trapped and sedated. And off he went.
The big highlight for us was watching the wolf catch fish.
Wolves have been caught on camera fishing, but watching one fish, from his perspective, catching several spawning suckers was a thrill for researchers. The Voyageurs Wolf Project tracked this young male for 6 weeks, watching crows up in the sky. The camera collar was made by a German company that even makes them extra large for elephants. The wolf cam was programmed to fall off, detach on a specific date, and GPS enabled researchers to retrieve it. What's Tom Gable's favorite oddball tidbit about the secret lives of wolves?
Wolves in our area eat a lot of blueberries.
Not only do they eat them, they sometimes regurgitate them for their cubs to eat. Talk about recycling. The wolf cam collar captured a lot of sleeping, and things were constantly hairy, whether dry or dripping wet.
The lens was covered in hair.
As one viewer noted, I feel so close to this wolf. I like sushi, I run in the woods, and my beard needs a trim, which is what the researchers plan to do the next time they use a wolf collar cam.
Yeah, so what we'll probably do is trim back that hair.
Keep your paws off my coat. A haircut's enough to make a lone wolf howl.
That's all for CNN 10. I'm Carl Azuz. Now that would leave some of y'all howling in protest. You'd be like, Wolf, are you thinking? Aren't you supposed to dog us with puns? It's true, I like to pack in a few of those before we leave. They're like a daily pick-me-pup, and they are a unique way of bringing our show to an end. Shout out to our viewers in... A new theory suggests it might have been easy for a human to keep pace with the Tyrannosaurus Rex, like you could outwalk it. Dutch paleontologists recently worked up some new calculations that took into account the T-Rex's large tail. They say that because animals prefer walking at speeds that minimize the energy they spend, the speed the T-Rex would have walked, with a 2,200-pound tail behind it, would have been at just under 3 miles per hour. Why does this matter? Well, it could help scientists better estimate the amount of food the animal would have needed to eat to keep its energy up, and how far it might have walked in search of that food. Their research did not estimate the animal's maximum speed, but maybe this can help us visualize what that might have looked like. So you wouldn't have died if you took it all in stride with some speed applied. There's no need for a ride. You could sneak her away by taking one step at a time. It's got to drag its tail. You could turn upon a dime. Just don't drag your feet or you could meet defeat. It needs to eat meat to survive and thrive, so don't be what's next. Just outrun the T-Rex, putting one foot in front of the other to stay alive. Wait! Don't leave... It wasn't too long ago that we showed you a cargo ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal, so why would someone try to navigate a 308-foot super yacht through the narrow canals of Holland? Well, the company that built the ship had to ship it, get it, from their shipyard to the North Sea. This was the way to do that. The photographer who recorded the video says the process takes place 4 to 6 times a year. He also says people love to see it unless they're stuck at a drawbridge waiting for it to pass. For them, it's a hard sail. They have a vesseled interest in getting through and probably wonder if the company can help it. Why not float the idea of overnight shipping and see what that's all about? It's certainly something to think about because in terms of dayside effort, it takes a yacht. I'm Carl Azuz, Darby High School in Darby, Montana. For 10 out of 10, a recent light show in Shanghai, China goes 3D. How did technicians do this? With drones, hundreds of them. They were synced up to form the image of a smartphone, and then video game characters appeared to leap off the screen. The whole thing was intended to promote a popular mobile game, but when the drones formed a giant QR code that linked to the game's website, well, for fans, it was game on. For critics, it's game over. They are concerned about the proliferation of promotion. But if you are the type to find air shows illuminating, and you don't mind scanning and training your phone in your eyes on the planning pertaining to drones in the skies, this could be the kind of thing you drone on about long after the lights come down. I'm Carl Azuz for CNN 10. Pendleton High School is... The fight to decide the one true Josh. 10 out of 10. Last year, this dude named Josh challenged other dudes named Josh to a battle royale. Whoever won would get to keep his name, the others would have to change theirs. Well, scores of Joshes showed up. There was so much interest that the event raised money for a food bank and a children's hospital, and after a giant fight with pool noodles, a 4-year-old nicknamed Little Josh came out the victor. Oh my Josh. Now you might have thought we were just joshing you until you saw that Josh pit, but Josh, you wait. When a battle results in that many Joshes getting their joshed desserts, justice has been served. That is hard to say. I'm Carl Azuz serving up puns for CNN 10. We're also happy to be serving the students. Late last year in southwest Kansas, a mother took her 2 daughters' Christmas wish lists, attached them to a balloon, and let them go. They never made it to the North Pole, but one of them did float more than 500 miles away to northwest Louisiana, where a deer hunter found the balloon and the wish list. Through the magic of social media and with the help of family and friends, the man not only returned the list, he got the girls almost everything on it, and that included a puppy which he and his wife drove to deliver themselves. It was like a visit from Louise's Santa Claus, and we bet the puppy's left some gifts of his own around the house. Who would have thought that a Christmas craft could have blown up like that, ballooning into a national news story? It's the kind of thing that's easy to get carried away with, even when there are strings attached, and it proves that Christmas wishes are not just full of hot air. I'm Carl Azuz. Today's shout out takes us to Eastern... The award recognizes outstanding work in the fields of music, drama, literature, and journalism. But there are some types of work in the journalism field that may not win reporters a Pulitzer, but they're still outstanding for the way the reporters remain standing when things go wrong. Take, for instance, when animals attack a newscast.
Even a certified meteorologist couldn't forecast this.
You might want a windscreen later in the afternoon. Whoa, whoa, whoa! What is going on?
A flapping bird in this Sacramento weather cam didn't exactly leave Adam Epstein unflappable.
Mainly dry, mainly rain. Sorry, I'm all mixed up. I'm still thinking about that bird.
But this latest bird photobomb is far from the first.
Here over the city, look at this.
He's totally checking out the camera, Mark.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not quite a scene out of the birds. But seagulls have been sighted.
An advisory from Okay, that is distracting.
We're not just talking birds that are camera hogs.
Oh my gosh, it's back.
And the spiders.
Whoa. Whoa!
And even more spiders.
And for our area, so let's oh my gosh, that was creepy.
At least with the weather cam, the critters are on the other side of the lens.
Your garden of bugs or flying onto my head.
Or capitulating to bison at the entrance to Yellowstone.
Oh my God. Oh no, I ain't messing with you. Oh no.
Or warding off raccoons on the White House lawn.
Get!
Heaving a footstool. Ah! But that itsy-bitsy spider doesn't look so itsy to a meteorologist who's bugging out.
Oh, I just don't like that. Okay, I gotta move it.
Genie Mose.
This is so cool.
Well, the first meteorologist had to weather a burden. The white bird had a lot of gull. The bee wouldn't buzz off, and the spiders tried to make a newscast a webcast. Bison bring a buffalo a load of anxiety, and it's hard to track down raccoons because they're masks. So the moral of the story is, whether you are in the field or you're in the studio, you risk being dogged by visitors. I'm Carl Azuz for CNN 10, South Plainfield High School. Next time your internet goes out, don't rush to blame your service provider or spotty Wi-Fi. It could just be the beavers. At least it was recently in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia. Officials say that while beavers there were building a dam, internet fiber cables apparently got in their way, so the animals just chewed them in half. The internet has since been restored. Officials called the incident very bizarre and uniquely Canadian. Just think, no streaming music from Justin Bieber, no retro online episodes of Leave It to Beaver. It's certainly something to chew over. The beavers probably got chewed out. It's just hard to believer the fevered beavers cleavered and severed the weaver that's the keever for people to sever the beaver net. I'm Carl Azuz, San Marcos High School. Thank you. A lot of folks in Florida have their swimming pools screened in to keep animals out. But not this bear. It recently busted through a woman's screen so it could take a dip. The owner says she regularly sees the animal in her neighborhood, but that this is the first damage the bear has really caused, and that it's a little too close for comfort. Yeah, you really can't just grin and bear it, even if it is brown with envy over your pool. It's a polarizing guest, a grisly discovery, and you don't want to be slothful about taking Cody action to banish it. I'm Carl Azuz. Thanks to the American... Well, this is a new way to think about an above-ground pool. It's 115 feet above the ground, a clear plastic box that's 82 feet long and would allow people to swim between two apartment complexes in London. You'll have to live in one of the buildings to enjoy the pool, and the cheapest two-bedroom unit costs $1.4 million. But moving through the pool that opens later this month is said to be like swimming and flying at the same time. It might be private, but it ain't private. You can see right through what they're trying to do. And while critics might say people there have gone off the deep end, they've still got their heads in the clouds where the air's a little more thin when they get in the swim. They just can't be afraid of heights or depths to take a plunge while hopefully not taking a plunge, if you know what I'm saying. Rochester Adams High School. There was this rickety old wooden platform near where I grew up that my dad liked to call Take Your Chance Bridge. Hopefully, this is nothing like that. At almost 1,700 feet long and more than 570 feet above a river, this is the longest pedestrian suspension bridge in the world. It takes about 10 minutes to walk across it. It costs $2.8 million to build it. And if you find yourself in Portugal with $14 in your pocket, you too can take a chance, unless it's a bridge too far. It is a long way from Madison County. The water beneath it is not the River Kwai. It's probably not a bridge of spies, and it doesn't lead to Terabithia. But while it'll keep you in suspense, it hopefully won't leave you there. While it'll help you cross, it hopefully won't leave you cross. And once you get there, you'll be able to say you are well traversed in crossing bridges. I'm Carl Azuz for CNN 10. Today's shout out goes out to the Pheasant. For 10 out of 10, it's time to fight fire with goats, as in goats. The Salinas riverbed in California typically sees dozens of wildfires every year. The city of Paso Robles has hired ruminants to reduce the threat. About 100 of these animals are expected to munch through overgrown grasses at a pace of about 2 to 3 acres per day. That creates natural fire breaks, spaces where fires lack the fuel to burn, and that can reduce the fire threat going forward. The cost of the project is $45,000, and as more space opens up, more goats and sheep could be brought in to help. So if fires get your goat, just go and get your goat. Don't be gruff about it. Just call your friends Billy and Nanny and encourage them not to be sheepish or to faint away from the chance to Kiko back and La Mancha their way through the gorse grasses like they're engorging themselves on a Toggenburger. I'm Carl Azuz with Goat Puns because they are tough to bleat. Shout out goes out to Divide County. My dog would like to know what's on your menu. Things you wouldn't expect to hear at a restaurant. But certain pet-friendly Hilton hotels in Britain and Ireland are looking to reward dogs for helping their owners during the lockdown. So they've devised a menu called Bon Appetit. No, I did not write that. It features doggy delicacies like beef bourguignon, mutt roast, and Earl Greyhound. Hilton says it's a reward for pets developed with vets. And though we don't know if that fine canine dining could cause indigestion, we bet gourmet Shar-Peis wouldn't turn up their noses at fresh delicacies like pulled pork, griff fondue, and snickerdoodles with whipped cream. I mean, why wouldn't they want to chow down on some fresh mutton? I'm Carl Azuz, and right now, we're going to Paris. Concluding today's show, the rise of Brood 10. It's not a movement, it's not a DJ. It's a group of cicadas. Also known as the Great Eastern Brood, these insects have been underground for the last 17 years. But in the biggest emergence of cicadas since 2004, billions of them are about to surface from Tennessee to New York in the hopes of finding a mate.
With a roar to rival a passing jet, the cicadas are on the move. A remarkable bunch called Brood 10, and when the males let loose with their mating call...
That's airplane noise. If we were in the center of Brood 10, you wouldn't hear that airplane.
This particular strain emerges in the mid-Atlantic and a few Midwestern states, living underground on tree roots, counting the seasonal cycles of those trees, and coming into the light only once every 17 years. To fascinate entomologists in the right place at the right time, like the Smithsonian's Floyd Shockley.
Periodical cicada mass emergences are one of those once or twice in a lifetime kind of things. I hope people, aren't scared, but enjoy the show.
In busy areas, 1.5 million could appear per acre, 1 trillion in all, rising when the soil temperature reaches 64 degrees. Are they dangerous? No, although they can damage some small trees where they lay their eggs. Are they edible? Yes.
Oh, yeah. That's the sound you want to hear.
There are videos online offering recipes, like this one from the Tennessee Farm Bureau, if you can stomach it.
Do I eat the eyes, too? A little crunchy. Got a leg stuck between my teeth here.
If you spice them right, they taste a lot like shrimp.
Why are there so many? Because everything eats them. Cicadas survive only because there are too many to be devoured entirely. Will they be around long? No, just a few weeks. But will they bug some people? Absolutely. So scientists say if you are caught in this creeping, crawling cicada storm, don't think of it as a scary nuisance, but a natural wonder like the Grand Canyon or Niagara Falls. That's what they say.
Of course, there'll be cicada haters out there. They'll be brooding when the insects start to hiss. But maybe we shouldn't let it bug us when they begin their homopterossum emergence, because after all, there's a kind of cicadance to their cicadance. Today's shout-out takes us to Juno. For our last story today, I'd like to welcome our special guest, Random. This is a roller coaster. It's named Orion. It's part of the Kings Island Amusement Park in Ohio. But Carl, what's so random about that? Well, test riding it are 32 plush dolls made in the likeness of the late painter Bob Ross. And if one of those is something you just gotta have, the park says you can win one by playing one of its midway games in the season ahead. It'll take skill, not a happy little accident, to win a Bob Ross, but if there's nothing wrong with having a tree as a friend, a plush shouldn't make your skin flush with a blush if you have more fun than most people by experiencing the joy of painting, roller coaster riding, and generally being Bob Rossum. I'm Carl Azuz, hoping all your trees are happy ones. Northport High School gets... Mighty Morphing Power Pasta. 10 out of 10. The twists, spirals, and tubes that pre-packaged pasta comes in make it fun to eat and important for the sauce. But a lot of its packaging is filled with air to accommodate the shapes, so researchers at Carnegie Mellon University found a way to stamp noodles so they curl up and roll when they're cooked, but so they can be packaged in smaller, flatter boxes. They say this could save space and packaging waste. You can ZD appeal, and as long as people can't taste the difference, maybe critics will paint nothing but ravioli reviews. Or so you thought. You can't tell everyone to spaghetti on the flat noodle bandwagon. For them, it's too far fetched for flat-faced fettuccine to vermicella. It just seems fusilli. Bucharest Christian... Well, if people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, people who travel in glass elevators shouldn't throw anything. This is an animation of a new observatory that's set to open this fall at an office skyscraper in New York City. It's called Summit 1 Vanderbilt, and it'll take intrepid observers as high as 1,210 feet over Midtown Manhattan. Glass skyboxes you can step out on are also part of this experience. Assuming you're not acrophobic, bactophobic, claustrophobic, or cityscapophobic, for some, this is the height of tourism, a view to a thrill, an amusing perch over a concrete jungle. For others, what goes up brings them down, giving them anything but a lift into thin air and leaving them glassy-eyed. I'm Carl Azuz, elevating your news. Shout out goes out to Mountain Brook. A new electric vehicle concept is making waves because it would fly right above them. This is what a company named Regent calls a ground effect vehicle. It's a plane that would fly very close to the water, making it more efficient. Of course, there'd be less margin for error that close to the surface at 180 miles per hour. Other companies are working on concepts like this. Regent hopes to get its off the ground, or water, by 2025. A seaplane that is plain to see would be an oversea adventure. Wave hopping without stopping could be a popping business venture. Still, the service could make nervous those who fear they'd scratch the surface. Shaking loose a new spruce goose on sea or sky could ground its purpose. Evanston High is... Rating 10 out of 10, when you are doing a live weather report and there's a technical glitch, the best thing you can do is have fun with it. That's what Fox 9 meteorologist Jennifer McDermott recently did. At first, she tried some hand waving, then she broke out a bit of a silly walk, it's almost a robot, and finally, a full conga line of closer and closer up Jennifers hilariously made their way across the shot. It wasn't pre-screened, it was green screened, and it was a scream to see the way she owned it. When McDermott's report got clouded by a storm of technical trouble, she rained down humor by precipitating a freestyle forecast that was partly glitchy with a 100% chance of awesome. I'm Carl Azuz, and that's CNN 10. A daring and death-defying rescue mission wraps up today's show. Well, maybe not exactly daring or death-defying, but it does involve ducks. 12 little ones and their mother recently wandered out of Central Park into a more populated part of New York City. You can't see the ducklings here, but you can hear them. They're cheeping from the carrier that police officers put them in. Mother Duck could hear them too, and she followed them and police back to Central Park where the wayward bird family was reunited. Well, you know they come cheaper by the dachshund, and it's nice police were there to help them out of their malady, because while ducks are known to occasionally go dabbling in adventure, it's not like they can whistle for help when they don't know which way to turn. There's no such thing as a 911 duck call either, so it is a good thing that police were able to preserve their dynasty. From Central Park, we're going... I'll see you at the pool right after I plug in my Lamborghini. That's what the company hopes its customers will be saying by the end of 2024, when the Italian supercar maker will only sell plug-in hybrids. These kinds of cars have both electric and internal combustion engines, so they'll still sound loud and aggressive. Lamborghini says its customers don't want fully electric supercars. It's making the switch to hybrids to reduce its vehicle's carbon dioxide emissions. But critics say so few people can afford Lamborghinis, which cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, that it really won't make a difference to the environment. Of course, if they want a Lamborghini one to test drive, you Bugatti believe that rolling around like a Koenigsegg egghead in a Ferrari really fast car that clearly bent leaves my Porsche old sedan in the dust? Well, I'd be Pagani in 60 seconds, y'all. Hey, our show drives off into the sunset next Friday, May 28th. We will return in... Things you won't find on the menu at Wendy's. Alligator. But some people recently found a 7-foot gator in the parking lot of a Wendy's in Florida. Experts say the animal was probably trying to move from one body of water to another when he arrived at the fast food restaurant, and some pedestrians had to hurry out of its way to avoid becoming fast food. Police joked that the gator might have been hangry for a cheeseburger. They and wildlife officials removed the reptile. They had to get there on the double. Thankfully, the gator was just a single, but it wasn't a junior, and it was giving passersby a frosty reception. The combo of police and wildlife officials was anything but chicken. They knew where the beef was, and their efforts were all in a day's work. It's just too bad Wendy's missed the chance to offer the bacon gator. Who's hungry for puns, y'all? We hope the students of Rock Ridge
look up to the heavens. When we look into the water, we don't really see that much. We see an opaque platform that we can pull fish out of, maybe go for a swim in, but we don't actually go too far down. You know, my dive was about 36,000 feet. Most humans never get below about 300 feet. So there's a long way to go yet.
So it appears we've barely scratched the surface. And there are still so many questions in limbo, except how low you can go, because we know from those who've plumbed the depths and helped us both deepen and reach new heights of understanding. Doherty Valley High School, shout out. For 10 out of 10, a star is born? Well, this is a simulation of what that might look like. It was created using a model of gas dynamics, gravity, magnetic fields, heating and cooling, and stellar activity, and then mixing all that up in a supercomputer and colorizing it. The result is what researchers are calling Star Forge, short for star formation in gaseous environments, and they hope it'll help them better understand just how stars are formed. Now, to some of us, it might seem nebulous, and that's the whole zenith. There are a black hole lot of theories, a new ton of things we don't know about the universe. Our understanding is so Oort cloudy. So if you have a prograde simulation that solar flares up the imagination, loop in an open cluster of scientists, because there is no way they're gonna miss it. Newark High School is in Newark. American actress Marilyn Monroe famously sang that diamonds are a girl's best friend. This could be a friend to anyone, or at least anyone with $29.3 million. That's how much it cost the winning buyer at a recent auction to take home the 15.81 carat purple pink stone. It's the most expensive diamond of this color ever to sell at an auction, and it's been classified as internally flawless. Now that's the kind of coal you want for Christmas. Even just a cut of that sales price would give enough color to a bank account that would add clarity as to why folks care it so much for the kind of stone that no one would skip out on. It's just too bad for buyers who fall a few bucks short because they'd be between a rock and a hard place. I'm Carl Azuz. Kailua Intermediate School is It's a bird, it's a plane, it's a UFO? By definition, anything zipping through the air that can't be explained immediately is an unidentified flying object, and this fits that definition.
Splashed. Mark bearing and range.
This video was taken aboard a U.S. Navy ship and recently leaked to the public. The U.S. Department of Defense says the footage is real, along with some similar clips leaked in the past 5 to 10 years. So what is it? If we UFO only knew. Of course, we could float some theories, air out some ideas, hover over the subject, toss out some thoughts, give props to the videographer, drone on with speculation. All that could be pretty fly. But if it turns out that everything was just an optical illusion, all my airheaded ideas would crash and burn. I'm Carl Azuz for CNN 10. When Xiao Qi-ji, the National Zoo's panda cub, was born, CNN's Jeannie Most described him as a shrieking alien salamander. Thankfully, he's now in a cuter phase. The giant panda, well, he's not that giant yet, but he is 9 months old, and he's gone from shrieking to climbing, getting cuddled by his mother, cuddling her back, and climbing some more. With the National Zoo reopened, visitors can now see him in action, assuming he's not hiding in a tree. What's black and white and cute all over? A border collie. But I don't mean to panda pandas. They provide potential for pandering pundas. After handling a pandemic, there's pent-up demand to unburden ourselves, and for fandas of the panda, coming out to the zoo is a bare necessity. From pandas to fox... Quick, name the world's largest carnivorous marsupial. If you said Tasmanian devil, you're pretty smart. Usually you'll find these things on the Australian island of Tasmania. Conservationists say they used to be on the mainland but died out because of disease and competition from dingoes. Anyway, efforts to reintroduce them to the continent are making progress. A wildlife sanctuary says 7 Tasmanian devil babies were just born in the Australian wild. Of course, this isn't good news for foxes or feral cats. They don't want Taz back on the Manian land, especially if they're carrying pouches full of babies that may not play well with the kits. But those species that don't mind another pupping back in could find themselves having a great time. It's always a Joey when you're kidding around and having fun, and if it continues, it could lead to Tasmania. On that note, it has been a joy to bring you the news throughout a crazy academic year. We are so grateful. Over the years, we've shown you a lot of instances of humanoid robots doing some pretty human-like things. Parkour is one of the newer accomplishments shown off by their developers, but there's another side to this. Just like with real people, there are robot fails, and they're hilarious. Sometimes they miss a step or appear to blow out something, and when it came to a sort of vault move, they were only successful half the time. Just goes to show that no stunts are automatic. Sometimes they just can't get themselves in gear, or they fail when focusing on form over malfunction. We have to remember that all computers occasionally crash. They're only humanoids after all. I'm Carl Azuz. A new viewer recently asked, why does he say those terrible puns at the end? It's because at the conclusion of every show, we like to have a little pun and games. Second show of the season. 77 years ago, Tom Rice parachuted into German-occupied France as part of America's D-Day invasion in World War II. Well, the U.S. Army veteran just jumped again. Mr. Rice performed a tandem jump from a vintage plane over California to celebrate his 100th birthday. Scores of people were there to cheer him on. After serving in the Second World War, Rice became an educator and taught for 40 years. He says the secret to a long life is to, quote, keep moving. Jumping into thin air is one way to do that. It's a pretty fly way to propel yourself forward, experience the ups and downs of gravity, find yourself free falling, and make a 2-point landing on your own 2 feet. Hey, we love to pepperoni and jalapenos. If I could have only 2 pizza toppings for the rest of my life, those would be the ones. They're not particularly unusual. Anchovies and pineapple, hopefully not together, have stirred up a lot of debate over the years. We've also heard of bacon pickle pizza and sloppy Joe pizza. But what about watermelon crust pizza? Is that even possible or good?
It's probably only a matter of time till watermelon ended up as pizza crust. And now Domino's wants a slice of the action.
This is equally confronting for us.
Adding sauce and cheese and pepperoni.
But it does look pretty good out the oven.
Pretty good? That's a war crime, posted one TikToker. Domino's, I can't keep defending you, protested another. Domino's Australia said it was inspired by TikTok chef Oliver Patterson, who whipped up a couple of watermelon pizzas earlier in the summer. But Patterson told Newsweek in order for it to taste good, you need to fry the watermelon to get rid of excess water and use barbecue sauce instead of tomato sauce. Barbecue apparently pairs better with watermelon. Even Domino's admitted.
We think it might be an acquired taste.
But look at the weird pizza taste people have acquired.
The new Crown Crust Pizza, made with perfectly grilled mini cheeseburger gems.
And then there's the hot dog pizza crust that Pizza Hut sold in countries like South Korea.
Pizza Hut, Royal Crusted Pizza.
Before bringing it to the U.S.
The hot dogs are just all right.
They're not amazing hot dogs.
As for watermelon pizza, suddenly putting pineapple on pizza isn't such a crime against humanity. Some big Domino's don't sell it, please. Don't worry. Domino's told CNN this was a joke made especially for TikTok.
But it certainly gave people something to TikTok about. Now, critics might have been like, watermelon you thinking? Just the idea leaves them crusty. For others, it's a fruitful suggestion and easy anchovies to make, and it ensures that no option is left behind. Yesterday, we heard from for sale, fake space dirt. You might be like, woo, I bet business is booming. Well, business is booming. A lab at the University of Central Florida mixes natural earth elements with chemical formulas. The idea is to create soil that's like that on Mars or asteroids. NASA, space companies, schools are all customers. They use the fake space dirt for research. The lab has shipped 25 tons of dirt this year. That's 5 times more than all of last year. And that's how to dish the dirt on a group that makes it. Wonder if they needed to put up 4 soil signs. Every business wants to be grounded in strong sales. They dig deep into research on how to do that. And while it's a dirty job, someone needs to mix it up so others can plant the seeds of new research. We are going to summer... There's an old Irving Berlin song that asks, how deep is the ocean? The answer is more than 36,000 feet. But the world's deepest swimming pool for diving can also make eyes water. Located in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, it's almost 197 feet deep, and it takes more than 3.5 million gallons of fresh water to fill it up. It has an underwater city and film studio, and while we don't know how much it cost to build this thing, the world's second deepest pool in Poland cost more than 10 million, so probably more than that. So if you want to build one of your own, you might have to dig deep, have deep pockets, have a deep-seated need for diving that knows no depth. You might have to dry off any bathyphobia and pool your resources, because this could take more coins than a wishing well. Fridays are awesome. Want to give a shout out to Every dog has its day, according to the TSA. That's the Transportation Security Administration, which helps keep travelers safe. And this animal employee, whose name is Alona, has just won the TSA's annual Cutest Canine Contest. She works at McCarran International Airport in Nevada, and because the 4-year-old Golden Retriever was born in the nation of Colombia, she knows commands in both English and Spanish. Of course, the whole competition went to the dogs, but this was a golden opportunity for the Golden Girl to Goldie lock in the gold and retrieve the championship in the cutest way possible. Yes, some dogs can sit, stay, and roll over, but Alona is working, guarding, and winning all day. I'm Carl Azuz, and that about wraps things. Before we head out today, we have a really sweet story about Phoebe and Frankie. Phoebe is the mama elephant. Frankie is her 9-week-old calf. They live and play together at the Columbus Zoo in Ohio. Frankie, which I think is the perfect name, was named after a woman called Frances. She was the mother of a zoo supporter. The Asian elephant calf looks really cute, but he would be a handful to cuddle. At 2 months, Frankie weighed more than 460 pounds. So Frankie, frankly, would be frankfully hefty to heft, but we're sure he does an fantastic job of hoisting and hauling in visitors who pachyderm the place just to check out the trunk show. Hey, want to thank you for checking out It's probably not as easy to top a pizza without gravity. Then again, that's something only these folks would have to worry about. This is a pizza party recently held at the International Space Station. The video was posted by an astronaut with the European Space Agency. The event might look kind of cheesy, but pizza is part of a variety of foods available to space travelers, though we're sure the longer trips make them hunger for a home-cooked meal. After all, there's not much room on the station to pepper the pantry with all the pepero needs and supreme preferences of its astronauts, or for a large oven to be baking that all up. And besides, with zero gravity, how do they keep it down? Hey, speaking of pizza party... Meteorologist Anthony Farnell at Global News Toronto knows how to stay focused. He was on air live recently when, what's up, dog? His pet, whose name is Storm, just wandered onto the set, and Farnell barely missed a beat.
Yes, Storm is in the building, getting some treats, walking on thin air.
Farnell and Storm just kept on doing what they were doing as if this happens every day. What a way to weather the high pressure, or at least put up a front, when the unexpected precipitates, when it's raining cats and dogs, or at least dogs, in the studio. Farnell didn't need to pant to keep his cool, he just stayed doggedly determined to get barked to the forecast. I'm Carl Azuz. We're giving a shout out today to Duche. The latest world record contender for the world's tallest sandcastle isn't like other sandcastles. For one thing, it was stabilized by wooden scaffolding during construction. It's been coated with glue so it'll last through the winter, and it's not on the beach. It's not too far from the beach. This was built in a coastal village of northern Denmark. At almost 70 feet high, it took almost 5 tons of sand to build, and 30 artists worked to carve the details into its walls. People often aspire to build castles when they barbican. Towering achievement? That depends on where you stand. Takes a lot of time and talent to build up a sand castle. Artistry helps draw the bridge and make it all worth the hassle. So portcullis if your battle meant to give the trial a go, because when it comes to castles, it's whatever floats your boat. Woo! I heard from... Something funny to wrap up our show today, and don't give me that skeptical side eye. These are comedic wildlife photos, and they're competing for a Comedy Wildlife Photography Award. Still not impressed? Well, there's got to be something here that you find eye-opening. 42 of the world's most amusing animal images will be voted on by viewers, and the winner gets a trophy, a special website for a year, and a 1-week-long safari. Haters might say that competition's for the birds, but if you find yourself monkeying around with a camera all the time and camel across something unbelievably hilarious, we'll take your best shot, Eagle Eye, cause you too could tree yourself to the title of Ping Winner. We love to recognize... On the list of stunts that have little margin for error, flying a plane through a tunnel is probably near the top. The pilot who recently did this in Turkey said it had never been done before. We can't verify that, but Guinness World Records did issue the award of longest tunnel flown through with an airplane, the distance being more than a mile. This would normally carry a "don't try this at home" disclaimer, but most people don't have a race plane, a pilot's license, a tunnel, a film crew, and a year to make preparations. So many copycats would be grounded. Oh, sure, they may make a flap about that, but it's plain to see that the props you'd need exceed what's free to take off at speed and land a record for flying solo through a tube that is so low. Orono is where we go. Though some people in Australia say they've sighted a Tasmanian tiger in recent years, scientists say the animal went extinct 85 years ago, and this is the last known footage ever taken of one. The film was shot at an Australian zoo in 1933, which was 3 years before the last captive Tasmanian tiger died. The footage was recently colorized in a process that took over 200 hours, and it was released to coincide with Australia's National Threatened Species Day. You can see how the allure of its lure can lure a plurality of people to keep a close lookout and try to lurkate any lurking living tigers in the unlikely event of capturing a lurky colorized couleur of their own. I'm Carl Azuz, and that's all I got for CNN. Not ready to come back down to Earth just yet. We're having a look at a new type of hot air balloon that would take well-paying customers to the edge of space, or at least higher than 99% of the Earth's atmosphere. If Space Perspective flights get off the ground as planned in 2024, they'll rise 100,000 feet above our planet's surface. Technically, space is defined as starting quite a bit higher than that, but the balloon flight would still allow passengers to see the darkness of space. It would be a relatively relaxing rise for as many as 8 people at a time. Flights would last 6 hours, and there will be a bathroom on board. If you want to get on board, the company is selling tickets in advance, but they're $125,000 each. which would leave a lot of space in your wallet if you know what I'm saying. But if you need a lift, you have a ballooning budget, and you don't mind being accused of looking down on people, this could put your head well above the clouds for a flight of fancy that defies and then depends on gravity. De Anza High School, we... Well, whether or not you're familiar with all the rules of cricket, you probably know this ain't supposed to happen.
Oh, the dog is the ball. Oh, here we go. Now that is...
At least she's not breaking any leash laws. An Irish women's player who was on the field owns this Cocker Spaniel, according to Newsweek magazine. When she practices with her family at home, the dog reportedly plays with them. So when the animal saw her owner playing in a game, well... So the dog plays cricket. Was she told to go and sick it? Did she kick it? Did she flick it? No, she saw the ball and picked it. Then she ran away so quick it caused an interrupted wicket. Protesters can go and pick it unless the dog had a ticket. Well, it's almost time for us to... Fantastic fair food favorites for me. Corn dogs, popcorn, and fried Oreos. But on the healthier side, there are veggies, and they're good for the people and the bears that eat them. The giant veggies that farmers grow and compete with at the Alaska State Fair are later brought to the brown bears at a wildlife conservation center. For the animals, it's a chance to gorge themselves and maybe even roll in hundreds of pounds of vegetables. Some can't bear to eat their veggies, others grin and bear it, or just barely choke them down. But if you've been bear-rated for forbearing to bear your greens, take some inspiration from the animals because they hibernate, all of them. DC International School, thank you. A lot of folks work out their abs, but anyone looking to set a record for planking, whether that's a personal or a world record, knows it's gonna hurt. But Daniel Scally is no stranger to pain. He has a condition that makes him extremely sensitive to it, but also taught him how to manage it. So to raise awareness about the condition and to set a new Guinness World Record, Daniel held an abdominal plank for 9 hours, 30 minutes, and 1 second. In thinking of challenges to compare that to, I drew a plank. It can feel simply abdominable. But if you're the no abscuses type and you don't get bored while working on your washboard, you can plank on planking as an absolutely awesome exercise that meets you in the middle. Bridgeport High School in... Among the skyscrapers of New York City, there are many breathtaking views. This one is more three-dimensional. Summit One Vanderbilt is one of the highest observatories in the city. It's got a lot of glass, and it's not just used in the balconies, the outdoor space, the elevators. This building features an art exhibit that has mirrors on the floor, the ceiling, and 3 sides, and they have so many reflections that people say you can't tell what's real. Others may scrape by simply scraping the sky, but those who Vanderbilt this one gave you the views of a fly with compound eyes that visualize the summit from every angle, the newfangled and dangled metals that bemuse and bespangle. It's a sight for sore eyes except for light and height fearers that reflects view and vantage points using glass, smoke, and mirrors. Woo! Now that we are through that, we want to... The extraordinary art has seen a lot over the past 185 years, but we're pretty sure this is the first time it's been draped in silver blue plastic fabric and red ropes. It took several months, $16.5 million, and 270,000 square feet of polypropylene, and the arch will stay wrapped for 2 weeks. But why? This is the vision of and a tribute to 2 famous artists who specialized in large-scale events that interrupted everyday life. So now that that's all wrapped up, was the artwork worth the effort? It sure took a lot of Monet, it wasn't Matisse, and we don't know if it'll ever happen Gauguin. But if you're the type whose day gotta make a statement in every saison, maybe that is your art of triumph. We've told you how the only way to get your... It's not every day someone tries to break the world record for the longest piece of string cheese. But hey, at the Wyawega Star Dairy in Wyawega, Wisconsin, breaking cheesy records is what they're all about. More than 1,700 people took hold of the single piece of cheese as it was unraveled from a tractor. After it doubled back, people held part of a 3,832-foot piece of string cheese history. It was almost 3/4 of a mile long. I know what you're thinking. Carl's about to make some cheesy puns. And you cheddar believe it, you know I regatta mask our pony up and stay linguistically Limburger by breely cutting loose with all the monstrous and gouda puns you camembert. That's the fun thing about cheese puns. We just eat 'em up. I'm Carl Azuz. You some... I don't need to be reporting with a dog to have a blooper. I can do that all by myself. After 3 days in orbit at an altitude of about, what? Popcorn, Oreos, shoot, let's try it again. Corn dogs. 3 is my favorite vegetable, corn dog. And even if a reporter is kneeling, doesn't mean he or she can't fall. Here's what this is all about.
Talk about famous last words.
And she's very well behaved.
Well behaved until Flash, the trainee guide dog, caused BBC weather person Carol Kirkwood to faceplant live on the breakfast show.
Look, she's gone. She's gone.
We got a Kirkwood down. We got a Kirkwood down.
Kirkwood temporarily lost her earpiece, but not her dignity, assuring the host she was all right.
Yes, she's a very strong girl, Flash.
And in a flash, Carol joins the ranks of TV types.
Oh, I ain't messing with you. Oh, no.
Interacting or trying not to interact with animals.
Get frickin' raccoons, man.
From spiders.
Whoa!
Oh my gosh, that was creepy.
To a camel.
Other livestock owners.
No, get it out.
I once found myself nearly disarmed by a hippo.
She seems to like to be mocked. Okay, just kidding.
Cradling a chimp stuck in a pig pen as a cub reporter.
Like my friend here.
With a pig oinking at my feet. Often it's just animals killing correspondents with affection.
Ginger just loves people. They need a wee bit of training.
Yeah, really, you think?
Carol Kirkwood got compliments on her training. Carol even manages to look graceful when falling down. She literally fell head over heels for Flash.
Who left in a flash like a heel, harnessing the moment to lead the reporter off camera. It could have apologized at least before taking a walk and causing her to roll over, but once she was able to sit and stay on air, she made a howlingly good recovery that bow-wowed her audience. It's terrible. I'm Carl Azuz. Homewood. Usually, when we show you superlatives for the longest or highest bridge in the world, there's some spectacular scenery involved. This one's over a highway. 14 lanes of traffic in Ontario, Canada, plus several train tracks and a smaller road. It's not brand new. This pedestrian bridge was completed in 2018, but since it stretches 820 feet long, officials said they didn't know of another one that long anywhere else in the world. So they applied for a Guinness World Record, and they just got it. The Pickering Pedestrian Bridge is now officially the longest enclosed pedestrian bridge on the planet. It might not be over troubled water, but it does look strong enough to trust. Its builders have got to be beaming with pride for putting a new record on deck and then spanning the world to win recognition for their superstructure. Well, that's the abridged version anyway. Batavia High School gets to... AI composers, robot rovers, and intellectual posers were all on display at a recent technology conference in China. We say posers because this isn't the real Albert Einstein, but it does speak Chinese. Kind of looks like him too. But there were other sights to see, like dancing and backflipping dogs. Dogs good at keeping their footing, a robot on keyboards, and a mechanized system that can help medical patients. But why Einstein? Why not? He was considered a pretty brainy dude, relativity speaking. If you've got the quantum mechanics, a massive a budget, and the physics equivalent of his likeness squared, go ahead and throw in some artificial intelligence and theorize if it levels the unified playing field of robotics, y'all. All right, today's shout out goes out to For 10 out of 10, one instance in which you're not gonna need a bigger boat. This heavy transport vessel is huge-mungus. How big is it? It's able to carry a cruise ship. The Boca Vanguard is the largest ship of its kind. The deck of the specially made vessel is able to sink below the water's surface so it can scoop up, so to speak, massive equipment like inoperable cruise ships or more commonly offshore oil and gas structures. When you cargo put out to sea because it's maritime to move something massive, or there are hardships upon the high seas because the cruisers ain't cruising, they're passive, the Boca's on Vanguard against loss of hope, a vast whale of a vessel that can float your boat. I'm Carl Azuz, Plainfield, Illinois. Ivar or Avar Swanson. Even you baseball fanatics might not know that name. But Swanson holds the world record for the fastest sprint around the bases. He ran it in 13.3 seconds. Well, that's the fastest sprint for a human, but at Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles, California, a Russell Terrier was recently unleashed to chase down the record for a dog. And he caught it! Macho! His name is Macho. His trainer reportedly spent more than a year teaching him how to do this, and when Macho finally came home, his time was 21.06 seconds. Nothing cheesy about Macho. While he was having a ball, 3 left turns put him right in the record books. People now know him on a first-name basis. He deserves his own card because he's tops. It's official. Macho is a baseball diamond in the rough. I'm Carl Azuz, and it's time to get loud. With winter on the way, most red squirrels are hiding the walnuts they collect in pits around their neighborhood. One squirrel, however, is storing his collection in a Chevy Avalanche. It belongs to a man named Bill Fisher who lives in North Dakota. In just a few days, Bill removed 42 gallons of black walnuts from the truck, and there are some he can hear but cannot remove. Bill says the squirrel was planning to do some car camping over the winter. Guess there are worse places to squirrel something away. But if the AM general idea, as the Sierra turns colder, is to have a Land Cruiser where you can tuck home an Acorn or F-150 of them, why not pick up a Power Wagon so you can Chevrolet up a few tokens of your Harvester so you can store them by the truckload? These ponds are nuts, y'all, and we're going nuts for... When it comes to goats and herding dogs, farms and fields make sense. A furniture store does not, especially when it's in the city of Atlanta. The idea was for the goats to naturally clear out an overgrown lot down the street, but the animals apparently decided to see the city while they were there, and people passing by were happy to see them too. In fact, it was the city folks who helped round up the country creatures right outside a rooms to go. More like ruminants to go, if you know what I'm saying. Where else would you look for a Bova daybed? We hear they have a great sale on ottomans, and for beardroom sets, their prices are tough to bleat. Just don't ask to see any sheepskin rugs, because they might think you're trying to billy them with something offensive. Carrollton High School... What do you get when you take 13,000 live orchids and suspend them from the ceiling? A whole mess of upside-down orchids, and they're pulled higher and lower on wires to make it seem like they're moving around you. This was put together by a company that aims to immerse people in art and technology. The title of this exhibit is Floating Flower Garden. Flowers and I are of the same root. The garden and I are one. It's now on display in Tokyo. It'd be a fun date unless people are allergic. That's not a bloomin' good time. They might find it appalling. They might ask, "Are you or kidding me?" and wonder why you'd choose to pick a destination from which their sneeze stems. Don't be surprised if they get the itch to follow their nose by running. Hey, we're happy to... Does a $10,000 Oreo rate a 10 out of 10? It does for the die-hard Pokemon fan willing to pay it. Pokemon Oreos came out last month, featuring video game characters on cookies. But the Mew Pokemon is a rare one, so some are popping up on eBay for as much as $10,000 plus shipping. That's for one cookie that's made out of the same stuff as regular Oreos, which sell for around $3 per package of 36 cookies. But this one's got something new. And while it's cooked up thunderous interest, some might even call it a Regis steal, others will think the seller is Koba Lion and that there's already no way he'll land Doris the sale. Guess they'll just have to Nabisco go somewhere else, if you know what I'm saying. I'm Carl Azuz, the city of Powell. Kaylee Ricard Ramos gets 10 out of 10 today. She's an Alaskan teenage athlete with a 4.0 grade point average, but it's what she did with an old delivery truck that's getting her national attention. Kaylee previously worked in a cafe, and she wanted to save money for college. So, with the help of family and friends, the high school sophomore converted her grandparents' unused truck to a mobile coffee shop, and voila! Espresso and college savings. Let's see, should we wheel out a load of truck puns or serve up a latte coffee puns? One would be a chassis way to haul out some bedliner one-liners, but the other could brew up an energizing coffee to puns that we could milk for all it's worth. So I think I'll go with... But we don't want to make you cafe-o late, so want to give a quick shout out to... The toy maker Mattel has been making astronaut Barbie dolls since 1965, and 56 years later, the European Space Agency has sent Barbie to zero gravity in honor of World Space Week. Space travel is expensive, so Barbie's aboard an airplane that simulates the zero gravity of space by diving after a sharp climb. The doll is modeled after Italian astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti, who says she hopes it inspires more women to take up space careers. Let's just hope Barbie doesn't get sick. We hear those zero-G flights can really test your Mattel, and plastic ain't the same as a cast iron stomach. It's true that many dolls are tossed up and down by those who toy with them, but zero-G can make you toss your cookies. Hopefully Barbie won't take it queasy lest critics call her barfy. I'm Carl Azuz, North Pike High School. Farmers put up scarecrows to keep birds out of their crops. Homeowners in Wisconsin put up this to keep speeders out of their neighborhood. They named it Frank, and they say he's necessary because reckless drivers keep flying down a nearby hill, sometimes wrecking and damaging property. Hard to say how effective the mannequin has been, but local officials say more speed bumps could be installed down the road, so Frank may only be a temporary worker. But let's be frank, if you're trying to tank some speedy or some seedy drivers without breaking the bank, why not build a scare speeder with a scarecrow plan? Cause if Frank can't do it, man that can. Let's not be coy, it's a decoy that's designed to perfect the art of taking a stand, man, and to serve and protect against the reckless or the feckless who might let off the throttle if they think they see a cop and stop for what's a model. Halt! No, halt as in halt. A stranded whale on a beach. Doesn't sound like our usual lighter side 10 out of 10 report, but this one's got something special. When a 32-foot long humpback whale recently appeared on the coast of Argentina, about 30 people got together and took action. They put slings underneath the whale's body, used an excavator to help lift it, and eventually returned the animal to the sea. It was the second humpback whale rescued near Buenos Aires in 48 hours. What I love is that they didn't sit and blubber about it or wait for some endorsement. They leaned into their rescue efforts, flexed some pectoral muscle, worked hard for a good caudal, and used a little elbow grease to oil the gears of a stuck mammal. Now that's what I call keeping it whale, y'all. The Buckeye State is the site of today's... It makes sense that there would be a festive title for an event that includes 600 hot air balloons, pilots from around the world, and more than 860,000 people in attendance over 9 days. That title is Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta, and Jeannie Most takes us up, up, and away at its most popular event, which has been flying high since 1989.
Humpty Dumpty didn't have a great fall. He had a great flight upside down over Albuquerque, New Mexico. It was the Special Shapes Rodeo at the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta, where an armadillo is named Armadillo, and time really does fly. Every which way you turn, there are balloons.
You need to have a 360 set of eyes in your head today.
Special Shapes Day feels a little like the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade. If all the handlers just let their balloons take off, the fiesta announcers have to keep their lions and their unicorns straight.
There's one of the new unicorns.
There's one of the new unicorns. Is that a new pig shape?
Spidey
Pig.
And Pegasus.
Special Shapes Day starts before dawn with the firing up of the balloons they call Glow Up.
And the sunrise is just killing it. Just killing it.
But you can't start the Special Shapes Rodeo without the national anthem.
Oh, say can you see?
Oh, you can see all right. Motorists can see. One of the few times out of the year when slow traffic isn't a bad thing. And with all those special shapes lurking, dogs barked and someone tweeted, "Felt like something was watching me." From jokers and jesters to a sloth on a stick.
It is just the cutest darn thing.
Everyone had their favorite. Even the sun wore shades. As for the balloon of the day, it was Arabelle who got the honor of first to fly.
O'er the land of the free.
And the home of the flying cow. Jeannie Most, CNN, New York.
So you can see why folks are all pumped up, gassed up, fired up, inflated like untethered basket cases who are floating on air with their heads in the clouds, airing out their appreciation with their eye on the sky and nothing to troposphere. From the air, we're going down to the valley to visit Valley High School. Shout out to our viewers in Las Vegas. For 10 out of 10, there are some home designs that make your head spin. In this case, it's the whole house. A man in the European country of Bosnia-Herzegovina built this for his wife because she kept changing her mind on the view she wanted from their old house. This one gives her every view. The speed is adjustable. One rotation can be as slow as 24 hours or as fast as 22 seconds. The project took the builder 6 years to complete. So when neighbors come around and ask, "Are you moving anytime soon?" they can point out their revolving door, the rotating cabinets, the turning clocks, the spinning exercise bike, the furniture with turned legs and rolled arms, a view that's often tops, and then make an about face and say, "We're always moving." I'm Carl Azuz. Before we move on, we're cool shots of big stuff getting demolished. 10 out of 10. These used to be cooling towers at a power station in the United Kingdom. Now you see them, now you don't. Here you have them, here you won't. It was a controlled implosion that brought down the remaining towers of a plant that was taken out of service 3 years ago. According to Newsweek magazine, the towers each stood 374 feet tall and contained 11,000 tons of concrete. We're just glad the demo crew was Yorkshire not to be putting anyone in danger. If you're looking to use a lot of bangers to mash down a tower, it's best to be sure there's no toad in the hole that could bubble and squeak when the fry-up comes down and threatens blood pudding. Who's hungry? Want to give a shout out to McGrath. Takes some serious time, money, and enthusiasm to build a life-sized X-Wing. But for some die-hard Star Wars fans in Russia, it was challenge accepted. The builders say it took several months to construct, and that in terms of the money they spent, it was, quote, a lot. The cost was $5,000, according to the news site Interesting Engineering. The X-Wing replica is made mostly of wood and doesn't actually fly. In fact, the starfighter doesn't actually fight stars. Its pilot doesn't actually walk skies. It's nowhere near a galaxy far, far away, and it took more than Obi-Wan builder, though it wasn't exactly a Rebel Alliance. Still, when it comes to the question of do or do not, Jedi gotta say the finished X-Wing makes for one great Mandalorian. Cannon City High School. If you've ever thought, how many tennis balls can a dog hold in its mouth at one time? There is a Guinness World Record for that. The answer is 6. This is Finley. He lives in New York and loves to do lots of normal doggy things, but his owner says that during games of fetch, Finley wouldn't just get the ball, he would hold it in his mouth and wait for another one to be thrown so he could carry that one too. He'd eventually bring back 6 at a time, so his family applied for and recently received the world record. Or should we say they retrieved it? You could also say they fetched it, that it was a golden opportunity, that they were barking up the right tree, that it made the implausible somewhat plausible. All that's quite a mouthful, but we would argue it rates more than a K9 out of 10, more like a perfect 10 out of 10. I'm Carl Azuz. To our viewers at Beverly... It's hard to wrap your little pumpkin head around this. If you take pumpkin carving seriously, and I mean so much so that you can't stop at one jack-o'-lantern, check out the Great Jack-o'-Lantern Blaze in New York. It features 7,000 illuminated gourds to depict everything from this to this and this. A team of professional artists and more than 1,000 volunteers work together to create the spectacle. Takes about an hour to see it all. Oh my goodness, what a fine way to carve a tourist attraction out of fruit. They make it look easy as pie, like all you seed to know is how to scare up a pulpable pumpkin, but most of us couldn't hold a candle to the extraordinary efforts of professional carvists. Orange, you glad we planted that in today's show? I'm Carvel Azuz. Today we are going to At first glance, this is a lot to take in.
¡Oh, faltó que! ¡Francesco! ¡No me lo creo! ¡No me lo creo!
If you guessed it has something to do with the balloon, you guessed right. This is the first ever Balloon World Cup. Competitors stumble around a court that's supposed to resemble a living room with a car in it and hit the balloon in an upward direction, but one that makes it hard for their opponent to get it. If you hit it in a place that he can't reach, you win points. This involves competitors from 32 countries, including the Americans who inspired it when their home balloon game went viral online. So it's really blown up. Now, even if it looks a little balloony and predicting the winner's a toss-up, no one competes balloon, and losing could really deflate one's ego. So hopefully a little airtime will helium enough to where he wants to knock around another day. Broadneck High School. You took the part that once was my heart. You took the best, so why not take the rest? Those are some of the lyrics to a classic American jazz song named All of Me, popularly performed by Billie Holiday. It's not to be confused with the song that John Legend released in 2013. Imagine singing that one live on the street when the legend himself showed up.
A street performer in Boston
You give me
was crooning All of Me when suddenly she got all of him. John Legend loves all of you. The man whose song she was singing was standing right before her eyes, though at first
I saw a man with a trench coat and a mask step forward. I thought to myself, that looks quite like John Legend, but that couldn't be him.
But then he took his mask off.
I was absolutely stunned.
In town for a concert, Legend was outside Faneuil Hall with his wife Chrissy and his kids, watching part-time singer Radha Rao perform Legend's song, never dreaming he'd be there.
It's definitely a fan favorite, and it's a song I feel so emotional about.
She said her mind went blank, she was nervous, but she kept singing as he nodded encouragement. Anyone who watches The Voice might expect him to wheel around any moment, but when Radha finished,
Give it up for Mr. Legend, John Legend. That's a surprise.
Legend reached in his pocket for his wallet, walked over to Radha and gave her a tip and a hug, telling her the song was beautiful.
Give my all to you.
But how much of his all did he give? Could she tell us how big a tip?
I would love to, but I actually don't know.
She just put it in her tip box and continued her set. But the one thing she does know,
I did give it my all.
Jeannie Mose, CNN, New York.
Easy to see how that could leave her head spinning. I mean, who knows what was going on in that beautiful mind? If she felt like the world was beating her down, John Legend really was around. The two of them in rhythm and blues just can't stop singing. I'm Carl Azuz, and I'd like to thank all... For 10 out of 10, another winning entry in the category of things you don't see every day. This is not a houseboat, but it is a house afloat. A woman in Canada who always loved this house found out that the owners were planning to tear it down. She couldn't have it moved over land, so she had it transported the way they used to move homes around Canada's Bay of Islands, and once it dries out, it'll be ready for the reno. Don't know what kind of loan she got, but thankfully it's not underwater. Of course, some might float a tub full of questions about flood insurance or indoor plumbing, but as long as the idea holds water, and hopefully the home doesn't, it's a great wave to see if it's worthy of being called seaworthy, and if someone ever does this again, they'll have a strong current idea about resale. For today's shout out, we're near a Spanish territory that borders the nation of Morocco, fishermen recently hauled in this, a massive sunfish that had gotten tangled in fishing nets. Before setting it free, they measured it at 10.5 feet long and 9.5 feet wide, and scientists estimate it weighs around 4,400 pounds. They couldn't find out for sure because the scale on the fishing boat was in danger of breaking. Sunfish are believed to be the largest bony fish on the planet, but there's a lot that scientists just don't know about them. So would you say that was a fish story? That the fishermen were just fishing for attention to hook, catch, and free you into an ocean of wonder? That's not what they're all. A trout, and the grouper of pictures prove they're in the swim and making waves. The only thing fishy about it was that it was a thin chance for us to leave you awash in a sea of puns. Despite the fish... Big John is on the move. That's the name of the largest known Triceratops skeleton. It was discovered in South Dakota in 2014. It was recently sold at an auction in France for $7.7 million, and the buyer was American, so Big John will cross the Atlantic once again. Paleontologists say the skeleton is about 60% complete. The rest of the bones usually have to be remade, and some scientists don't like private sales of fossils. But if you collect old artifacts, it's Triceratops. Cost a skeleton of money, but it's guaranteed to stop your family in their tracks when they see that thing in your home. Don't doubt it. If a dinosaur scores up your floor, you make no bones about it. No one has a pet Triceratops and leave your guests all glossy-eyed. A bona fide sight with all its might for their sore fossil eyes. Maybe not my best rap, but I'm spitting artifacts. Want to give a shout out to Natchitoches CNN reporter Anna Stewart has an awesome rapport with turkeys. They were simply starstruck surrounding her as she gave an update on a worker shortage in England's turkey industry. Now, Anna didn't say if she had any food in her pockets to attract such attention, but she did do a trick for CNNI anchor Julia Chatterley.
If you clap. I mean, in some ways, they're a great audience.
Now, you can't do something like that and not be asked to do it again, so Anna did.
Fabulous. Anna Stewart at a turkey farm in Essex.
Well, that about gobbles up our time. Maybe you smelled that one cooking. But if we're about to trot out some turkey puns, you know I'm not going to be snooty about it. I will waddle them out one by one like your goofy car uncle, giving thanks to have listeners to my wreck tricks of the trade. I'm Uncle Carl Azuz. Today's shout out takes us to a Remo. For 10 out of 10, you know that show Shark Tank? Well, this drone video shows real sharks lurking just beneath surfers and swimmers near San Diego, California. And we're not talking about those friendly nurse sharks or whale sharks. These are great whites. Experts believe they're juveniles, and in these pictures, they leave the humans alone. Shark attacks are reportedly rare in this area, though the people and animals get awfully close. Here's the plan. We won't tell the sharks how sweet or salty people can be, and we'll ask the surfers to keep quiet about shark fin soup and shark skin suits. Yes, some will say we're sharking our duty to be transparent, but that water's transparent enough, and the last thing we need is for either side to get frenzied or fanatical and start making a splash, if you know what I'm saying. We're glad our show's making a splash. Rolling pumpkins, smashing pumpkins, sledding on pumpkins. 10 out of... This is how some students at an Ohio high school celebrate the Halloween season. It's a tradition dating back to the 1960s. They have a whole mess of pumpkins dumped on a steep hill. They smash some of said pumpkins on said steep hill, and then they slide down the slimy pumpkin innards on sleds, boxes, plastic pools, whatever they can find, really. Money is raised in advance to pay for the cleanup and any police tickets that might be issued. It's impossible for pumpkin rolls to stem from what's discreet. When you're having a gourd time and sliming up and down the street, you could eat some seeds or bake some bread, but where's the fun in that when you can bust some pumpkin heads and sled as part of a master plant? It's vine time, a slick stick of fruit they'll never want to drop, and you can easily see the glee they glean from the cream of the crop. All right, pumpkin puns. They'll grow on you. I'm Carl Azuz. Before we leave today, we want to make a stop.
About 300 feet. So there's a long way to go yet.
So it appears we barely scratched the surface, and there's still so many questions in limbo, except how low you can go, because we know from those who've plumbed the depths and helped us both deepen our sea of knowledge and reach new heights of understanding. Today's show takes us to Plano. 26 days from the start of Hanukkah and 53 days from Christmas, it seems like this might be on someone's wish list. It's a Japanese hover bike. It's a hybrid with 4 battery-powered motors and a gas engine. Its range is about 40 minutes of flight time, and its top speed is said to be around 60 miles per hour. Of course, you might need a pilot's license to operate it, and you will need $700,000 to put it in your garage or hangar. But you can bike on having fans hover around. When you get that fly ride off the ground, when they hear this sound, they'll all abound like a flock of birds all fluttering downtown, all bound to try and hound you. If you're lost but then get found, you get props when yours get wound and seeing what's up when you get down. I wasn't planning a rap today, but that one just kind of took off. Shout out goes out to Catoosa High School. Wrapping up our show on a light note, a northern light note. This is what can happen when a solar flare erupts and causes a geomagnetic storm of electrons that are energized through their acceleration following Earth's magnetic field until they collide with atoms and molecules that release their energy in the form of light when they relax from an excited state. See? Because of a solar flare, the northern lights were visible in more places than usual over the weekend. They might have even been seen as far south as Portland, Oregon, or Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, if the weather hadn't been rainy. It's too bad. Light shows are aurorable. Even if you find them a bit of a borealis, it's rare for them to be visible illumination-wide, and in the night sky they make a huge difference. So you can see how across the spectrum they delight and bedazzle. I'm Carl Azuz. Today's shout-out goes out to... Don't know if this actually happened during Taco Tuesday on the ISS, but we do know that astronauts recently enjoyed a taco dinner after harvesting a mini crop of chili peppers grown in the orbiting laboratory. It took a while, 4 months to grow the peppers in space, and while they were enjoyed by astronauts who can lose some of their ability to taste and smell in zero gravity, they'll be studied for their viability on long-term space missions. Now let's taco moment to cook up a few corny puns. They're always flowering here, they help season our show. And one without puns, like a space station without peppers, just IS isn't as flavorful. Have you ever saw such a thing as space tacos? We hear they're out of this world. I'm Carl Azuz, and there's the beef on CNN 10. Nevada High School. Usually the idea on Halloween is that kids show up to collect candy. These 3 fifth graders in Rhode Island dropped it off. Homeowner Kristen Wells had left out a bowl with one of those take 1 or 2 signs, but when the boys got there, there was nothing left in the bowl. So thinking that other kids who trick-or-treated here would be disappointed to find it empty, they each took out some of the candy they had gathered and filled the bowl back up. Now that's sweet. Oh, sure, some trolleys may snicker about it and say the 3 Musketeers were nerds or Yorks or call the whole candy idea corny, but that's rude, baby, rude. Betwixt you and me, it takes mounds of good and plenty kindness, a starburst and a whopper of almond joy to make other ranchers feel jolly now and later. They went beyond what is reasonable, and some might even say they're lifesavers. I'm Carl Azuz, and before we skittle down... For 10 out of 10, an art exhibition that just wrapped up in Egypt is really one of a kind. It's unique because of its background. I mean, you won't find this anywhere else. The exhibition was called Forever is Now, and it featured large-scale sculptures and installations by 10 contemporary artists. Some of their works appear to incorporate their ancient background more than others. The whole goal was to blend the past and the present. Oh, some might not think it's worth the Monet to Van Gogh to a show like that. They might not Da Vinci the purpose or Rivera the modern methods if they believe in O'Keefing or leaving the pyramids alone. But for those who go Chagall into thinking the past and present rock well together, well, they'll see that just like with the pyramids themselves, there's a point. Before we leave, we would leave. South Dakota State University's mascot is the Jackrabbits, but never underestimate the swiftness of the moose. This happened ahead of last weekend's rivalry game between South Dakota State and North Dakota State. Police and stadium officials worked to shoo the animal out of the venue. We can't confirm that the moose had any impact on the game, though he would have scored himself if he hadn't stepped out of bounds. But South Dakota State later won. I think the team needs to recruit him. I mean, he could run all day, he's got plenty of muscle, plus he could follow in the footsteps of Baker Moosefield, Emu Smith, Joe Moose Tana, Mooska Fitzpatrick, Joe Namath, Mooshel Falk, and of course, Randy Moose. That's mostly all for today, but before we leave, we will... To borrow a pun from my colleague Jeremy Roth, this is surreal estate. A castle in Connecticut has hit the market, and when we say castle, this thing has more than 18,000 square feet of living space, 9 bedrooms, 7 full bathrooms, 12 fireplaces. It's in Connecticut after all. It's got an apartment nearby, and the 75-acre property includes its own moat because it was built on a pond. So if you're seeing this and saying, this is fit for the king or queen that is me, you'll need a king's ransom to buy it at $35 million. That's a Camelot. I mean, saving that much money sure would be hard. It could take Middle Ages. You'd have to be royally flush with cash. You might have to barter with your Shakespeares. For moat people, it would be a futile effort. Hear ye, hear ye. For today's shout out, we are going to... Why would someone want to make a skateboard out of pizza? Simple.
I skateboard for like 18 years now. So I was like, pizza, skateboard, pizza, skateboard.
It starts with a real slice of pizza. It's covered with a plastic resin and allowed to harden. Add polish, trucks, and wheels, and you're ready to shred like mozzarella. Don't know how it rides, but it costs $800 if you want him to bake you, then make you your own. Now, some folks are going to be blunt and say it looks fakey, but like pizzas, all the boards are boneless, and if you add anchovies, they come with a built-in stalefish. So slap on your pepperoni pads and drop back into playing with your food, because even if you're a complete poser and you faceplant into your deck while trying to grind, at least you'll have something to eat. I'm Carl Azuz, and today's show goes... Julia Hawkins recently made headlines for running the 100-meter dash in just under 1 minute 3 seconds. If that math doesn't sound quite right to you, add in the fact that she's 105 years old. Last Saturday, the woman nicknamed Hurricane crossed the finish line and set a world record at the 2021 Louisiana Senior Games. She started racing and setting records after she turned 100. At her most recent race, Miss Hawkins said she felt wonderful. We'd say she's hit her stride. What a way to take life one step at a time, seemingly staying a step ahead of time to cross the finish line at a time that no one else has stepped to. She's put her best foot forward, taking challenge after challenge, step by step to beat the clock while clocking victory. Today's shout out takes us to... While we're on the subject of Christmas trees, specifically ones from Maryland, this here tree has been chosen to become part of a famous tradition at New York City's Rockefeller Center. It's a biggin', almost 80 feet tall, 12 tons in weight. The 85-year-old Norway spruce was donated by a family in Maryland, the first time a tree from that state will stand at Rockefeller Center, and it'll be covered with 50,000 colored lights. Well, see, and that's enough to Rockefeller. It'll certainly balsam over, spruce things up, endure freezer temperatures, illuminate spirits that need a little more light at this time. As they say, trees the season. I'm Carl Azuz, and from the East Coast... For 10 out of 10, we're getting pumped up. These balloons were recently tested ahead of next week's Thanksgiving parade in New York City. Hundreds of volunteers took part to make sure the bags hold air, to see how they handle if the wind kicks up. And it's a testing ground for the handlers themselves, as managing these things does take some technique. Several new balloons, from Ronald McDonald and Baby Yoda to Pikachu, are set to be part of the fun. Well, that ties up another edition of our show. We're tethered to that 10-minute limit. Really can't rope in any more time than that. And plus, an extra minute of puns would be kind of balloony, if you get my drift. But before we float away, we would like to give some airtime to Luddington High... Pumpkin smashing rates a 10 out of 10 today. We're not saying kids should try this at home, but kids did recently get to take a bat or a hammer to their past date pumpkins at a farm in Missouri. Why? Well, fall's winding down, so this is a way to gear up for winter, and the farm plans to recycle the gashed gourds, the smashed pumpkins, the fouled fruit, the jacked up jack-o'-lanterns by feeding them to livestock or using them as compost. After all the Halloween stories we ran, I'm running short on pumpkins. They don't exactly grow on trees, you know. And while I have a fine time delivering them, it takes a gourd amount of effort to grow them. So maybe I ought to just plant the idea that we hire a jack-o'-lantern to help write. Before we go, we've got... Back in 2016, a woman named Wanda Dench texted a 17-year-old named Jamal Hinton letting him know when Thanksgiving dinner was. The problem is, they didn't know each other. Wanda sent the text to the wrong number trying to reach her grandson. Jamal, not recognizing the number, asked Wanda to send a selfie, and then he sent one back saying, "You're not my grandma." But he asked if a spot at the Thanksgiving table was still open, to which she replied, "Of course." That was the beginning of a friendship that's still going strong, with their 6th Thanksgiving together coming up.
She welcomed me into her house, so that shows me how great of a person she is. Thankful for people like that.
It's come from God above, that he's just using us as tools and vessels to bring a message, to others.
A story that's fun to feast your eyes on. The table was set with a not-so-secret sauce of friendship. It seemed easy as pie. It's stuffed with hospitality, has a gravy kind of love, makes for a very happy Thanksgiving, and comes with a heaping helping of tweet potatoes. I'm Carl Azuz, and today's show goes out to... A researcher at Scotland's University of Glasgow says animals can be active users of technology. But do they want to be? What she did was stick a special kind of phone into a dog toy. Then she tracked how many times her 10-year-old Labrador, Zach, would call her. Zach called a lot, between 5 and 9 times a day. But what's not known is if he really wanted to talk or if he just triggered the call by accident because he wanted to play with his toy. Still, if this idea takes off, researchers hope it'll be used to help the pandemic puppies that are left alone if their owners have to go back to the office. Of course, they'd need a paw set instead of a handset. They'll always be barking into the line. Translation apps for dogs are still pretty rough, and not all of them will think a phone call is a real treat. But hey, at least Zach was the perfect subject. He knew how to work the Labrador receiver. Hey, Fridays are pawsome. It's time for us to scoot, but... A new auction record has just been set for the most money ever paid for a book, printed text, or historical document. And the historical document that set it is a rare copy of the U.S. Constitution. The original was handwritten and not for sale. You can see it at the National Archives in Washington, D.C. But of the 500 copies that were printed in September of 1787, just 13 of them are known to survive. And this one was estimated to fetch between $15 and $20 million. However, after a bidding war, the CEO of an investment company won the auction with a $43.2 million bid. He reportedly plans to loan it to a museum. Not every executive would have the power to spend that. Not everyone with the money would have the Constitution. Is the sale a preamble to more auction records? Those can always be amended and documented, and this one will be preserved for posterity. It makes sense, though, that the record would set a record. It's fitting for one of the oldest surviving documents of the oldest surviving governing document. I'm Carl Azuz, West Morton High School. On a small island in the Indian Ocean, an annual migration has residents seeing red and feeling crabby. It's the rainy season on Christmas Island, and so many crustaceans make their way from the forest to the sea this time of year that authorities built a special bridge so they don't become roadkill. Each female crab can produce up to 100,000 eggs. 'Twas 5 weeks before Christmas, and all across that island, red crabs were traversing the lowlands and highlands. With bridges to cross and barriers to breach, no thing could stop their sideways march to the beach. It's a sea of red crawling the ground in slow motion. Their goal, not the pole, but the distant crust ocean. You don't have to tell us that others are shellless. While they may grace plates, these crabs get the applause of trivia hoarders and media reporters who root for them on their route to Sandy Claus. That wraps up our show for the week. Want to give a shout out to Furness. It's been said that you gotta learn to crawl before you walk, but this toddler in China is pretty good at snowboarding, and she isn't walking well yet. The girl isn't even a year old. Her parents say they were amazed when they just tried putting her in snowboarding shoes and then saw her stand up and start sliding. She wears protective gear inside of her snowsuit, and at 11 months, she's doing this and seems to be loving it. Is it insanity? It is infanity. Critics might say it is just her folks' vanity, but she's got steez. Show a little humanity. Shredding the gnar with no need for inanity. Easy to see and to be a big fan of thee. Grommet or toddler, part of the planet thee. Winter Wunderkind, search the whole land of the earth. She's the youngest on its snowy canopy. Time for the shout out. We want... This dude named Michael Pick said he had a choice. Practice and get better at shooting with a regular Nerf gun or build a bigger Nerf gun. He did the second thing. Designed on a computer, built using plywood and 3D printed parts, it's 12.5 feet long and weighs more than 200 pounds. It's powered by electronics and a paintball air tank. Unlike regular Nerf guns, it is not a toy, but it can wreak havoc on water balloons. You can't buy it either because Nerf would Nerfer sell it. They probably wouldn't have the Nerf to build it, and it would make your mom really nervous. Is it Nerfarious? Only if its holder gets Nerfurious, so you don't want to get on his nerves, if you know what I'm saying. Mods to these toys are Nerfer ending, so we'll keep an eye out for what people build on their own Nerf. I'm Carl Azuz. Bexley High School gets... Christmas Island, Santa's Magic Sleigh, Dominic the Donkey, and Santa Claus's Party. These are some of the lesser-known Christmas songs that didn't seem to catch on like White Christmas. Will the tradition of Woody the Talking Christmas Tree catch on at a mall in eastern Canada?
It's a talking Christmas tree that's being talked about.
I'm so glad to be back home.
Talked about by everyone from little kids.
I never talked to one before.
After a 15-year hiatus, Woody the Talking Tree is back at the Micmac Mall in Nova Scotia, Canada, depicted as the Nightmare Before Christmas by one cartoonist. Kill it with fire, someone tweeted. Woody's very own Twitter account describes him as a chatty coniferous with a penchant for small talk in malls. There's something about kids talking to Woody, reminiscent of Dorothy talking to the Wizard of Oz.
Do not arouse the wrath of the great and powerful Oz.
Woody got a makeover from this to this after an absence of 15 years, the mall manager says.
Woody was in the North Pole.
Actually, the mall changed management. Now Woody is inspiring kitty sketches, embroidery, tree ornaments, even fingernail art. Woody is the Wizard of Oz, easy to needle. Jeannie Most, CNN, New York.
Some will ask if it's for real if they can't believe their eyes. Supporters might call it noble or grand and say it spruces up the mall. Critics might say it's a pine to look at and should be put back in the freezer. In short, Woody will be sure to balsam over while others will be cypressed to run the other way. But hey, tree's the season. John A. Ferguson. After a few days on the lam, Steve is finally back in the pen. This is Steve. He's a goat. His day job, along with a team of other goats, is helping the city of Clive, Iowa, keep invasive plant species out of the green belt. They do that by eating them. But Steve recently went AWOL and spent 4.5 days wildly roaming the city. Finally, a family cornered him at a car dealership after he stopped to admire his reflection in the glass. Seems he traded his freedom up for his pride. You could say there's mutton to it, didn't cost him his hide, but all kidding aside, he'd still be on the limb if he hadn't stuck his chin out to admire his vanity. He made a bad choice, Santa couldn't be clearer that he missed a bleat when he stopped to stare in the mirror. You can't chew the cud reflecting on your own reflection. He should have hoofed it moving on ahead in any direction, but in working for the city, he's sure to get the vote that when it comes to escape artist, Steve's the GOAT. Alright, we love to recognize... If you've always dreamed of spending Christmas Home Alone style, and I don't mean without people, I mean in the Chicago area house whose halls are decked with 1990 movie glory, here's your chance. The home that Home Alone was filmed in is available for rent. It's not expensive. $25 gets you through the front door, but you'll probably have to beat out thousands of film fans during booking, as it's only available for one overnight stay, one time. We're guessing the burglars are not included, though plenty of wallpaper is. And Airbnb says the tarantula will be there, though it's not Iraq needed. Of course, you'll have to Chicago there, you filthy animal, if you win, but just beating out the competition for that Home Alone will be a close aftershave. And for the winning fan of the movie and the nostalgia, you Colcan Macaulay at Home Sweet Home. I'm Carl Azuz. Skyview High School gets today's... For some of us, it's hard enough to solve a Rubik's Cube, like, period. But if it comes easy, naturally, and quickly to you, check out what it takes to be a semi-finalist in a fastest hand competition when you gotta solve a Rubik's Cube like this. Juliette Sebastien from France, who provided this video, holds a couple European records for getting the colors all lined up. She says she's practiced with a cube in her pocket while walking around. You could call her a true artist, a cubist, kind of like Rubens except Rubik's. I guess to be successful, you gotta block everything else out, keep your head from spinning while your hand does, make it your transmission to be monochrome automatic, and build your record brick by taking it 3 by 3 steps at a time. Olympia High School, we see you. For 10 out of 10, there's no place like a new home for the holidays. Ebony Johnson and Suzanne Burke had a common bond: donuts. Johnson worked at the Dunkin' Donuts where Burke regularly saw her at the drive-thru. They got to become friends. But when Johnson lost her home because of financial problems, Burke contacted local organizations, a furniture bank, and a designer who all worked together to provide a fully furnished home for Johnson and her family. Sounds like a good seasonal story, don't it? An old-fashioned friendship can make anyone jelly. You can glaze on it as the cream of the cream and chalk a lot of good outcomes up to it because very few things are sweeter. With hazelnuts roasting over an open fire and Jack Frosted nipping at our noses, there's nothing like a warm donut, whether you like to dunk 'em or prefer the cream crispy, to bring people together. Our YouTube channel has... Despite all the research you can do, there are still some mysteries out there concerning foxes. We know they're nocturnal, they live in dens, female foxes are vixens while males are called dogs. We know they have amazing hearing and are said to make a lot of different sounds. But one important mystery that hasn't unraveled until now is, what does the fox say?
If you need a laugh, boy do we have one for you. Remember that famous song? What does the fox say? Well, now we know what Dixie the fox says. And Dixie isn't the only giggler.
What's a Finnegan fox? Oh, I'm so happy to see you too.
Posted one commenter, they are basically giant squeaky toys. OMG, Dixie's laugh is so adorbs. So adorbs that the folks who rescue foxes at Save a Fox in Minnesota use the giggling to publicize their cause.
Hi, Finnegan. Hi, Dixie.
The foxes tend to giggle mostly when the founder of Save a Fox, Michaela Raines, tickles them.
She just has this bond with them and they love her so much.
Love her enough,
Dixie,
to perch on her head Every morning she delivers raw eggs.
Good boy.
To these foxes.
Sophie.
Rescued from fur farms or no longer wanted as pets.
Jack is burying his egg for later. It's for Dixie too.
Michaela only has to egg them on to get a giggle. The nonprofit even raises funds by selling stuffed toys that erupt in the actual recorded giggles of Finnegan and...
This is Dixie.
They've sold over 1,000 and tend to run out of stock. The next time you hear... What does the fox say? How can she say anything when she's in stitches? Jeannie Most, CNN, New York.
Well, I'm glad we got that cleared up. You know, on CNN Den, our approach is just the fox. We try to avoid the gray areas, don't do things on the sly or get too finicky. Only when we're vixen to wrap things pup do we start kidding around, and even then, it's just to dog you. I'm Carl Azuz. Premier High School is in Phoenix. In general, skydiving doesn't sound like something you need to add speed to, but don't tell that to these two. They're the world record holders in speed skydiving. When you don't just jump out of a plane, you angle your body and prevent it from wobbling in order to fall as fast as possible, like more than 300 miles per hour possible, when normal skydiving only drops you at 120 miles per hour. It's reportedly the fastest non-motorized sport on the earth? No, off the earth. And they need no atmosphere, my dear. If the speeds they post and the posts they share show, believe it or not, they're walking on air. It's a scare, it's a thrill, it takes a dangerous drive to head down head first on a headstrong dive to put their airheads together as they dare to shoot down toward the ground before they parachute. Well, that'll get our heads out of the clouds. We are headed to the United Kingdom before we jump today. Shout out to Lakenheath High School in... Today I learned that there is a color of the year. The Pantone Color Institute, an American design company, chooses a shade it thinks will represent the year ahead. There were two chosen for 2021, Ultimate Gray and Illuminating. For 2022, Pantone has created Very Perry, which an executive says has joyous attitude, carefree confidence, and a creative spirit. A coworker of mine said it also harkens back to the bridesmaids' dresses of 1999. So the question is, does Very Perry make you merry? Do you find it light and airy? Would it earn an entry in your very wary diary? Is it beautiful and fairy? Is it something you would sherry? Is it scary? Like lactose intolerance, avoid the dairy. It's a rarey query that has made us tarry like a wrinkle needs ironing out about a color known as periwinkle. Yes, I wore this shirt intentionally. I'm Carl Azuz. Today's shout out goes out to... The Grinch would consider this house a challenge. If you've ever wondered how many decorated Christmas trees could fit into one place, this residence in Germany holds the Guinness World Record. Before we get to the number, let's marvel at the display. Owners have been working on it for months. Each tree was decorated by hand. There are 300 strings of lights, 10,000 ornaments, and all that adorns the record number of 444 Christmas trees. Which is quite a sash. It makes sense that stocking a house like that would decorate the blue ribbon, and now that their name's in lights, it's time to go rocking around the Christmas trees that garlanded them a record by garnering a gift they ornament to hang by the chimney with care, assuming they can find the space. That about wraps up our show. Kennesaw Mountain High School, shout out. Bears have been known to eat everything from berries and fish to grass and deer. But do they eat reindeer? This one does. The cub viciously attacked an inflatable reindeer recently in Southern California while its mother hung back and watched the scene unfold. Get it? A woman nearby thought this was funny enough to whip out her phone and provide this video, but she says the two bears are commonly seen in the neighborhood and that they're trouble. You might call them bad news bears. That cub left more than a barren stain on that reindeer. He caused a padding ton of damage. And while no one had to call Smokey, and this happened a long way from Chicago, we'd say the cub that managed to Winnie the fight will probably get passed over by Rudolph and the gang this Christmas. Pocahontas High School. A lot of people look at their neighbor's Christmas lights and think, I could do better than that. Well, here's a new challenge. A family in New York State just broke their own world record for having the most Christmas lights on a residential property. Their 2014 record was a little less than 602,000 lights. This year, they went for an even higher energy bill with almost 687,000 lights. It took them 8 weeks and 8 miles of extension cords to build. And they don't only share the display with their community, they share the donations they receive with firefighters and local charities. So it's still meant for a good cause. Lit up like the North Star for Santa Claus, because on the foggiest nights with rain and snow present, he could guide his sleigh by that incandescent display on Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, socket and circuit and voltage resistance, fuses and diffuse, and ohm filled with light on a shameless plug, bringing all a good night. Santastic! Our last shout out of the year.